am going to call our Truckee Town Council meeting of November 8th, 2022 to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Pallavi. Vice Mayor Romack.
Here.
Mayor Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Klostad.
Here.
And Councilmember Zabriskie.
Here.
Thank you. And with that, would everyone please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. We'll move on to agenda item 4.0. This is an opportunity for general public comment. Anyone from the public may make a public comment on an item that is not on the agenda this evening. You have 3 minutes. You can come up to the podium. There is a timer over on this side of the dais, and I was always taught not to interrupt, but if you get to 3 minutes, I will, just to preserve time for the evening. Would anyone like to make a general public comment tonight?
Truckee resident. J.D. Haas, Truckee resident. I want to tell you why there's no school today. It's about the level of service. We don't have any snowplow drivers here that can run a third shift. It's not because it's a snowstorm. This is average. This is the second time this has happened. As I drove down the streets today, we've built sidewalks, we've done all these things, but we can't maintain them. We can't move the snow. We can't get this job done. We just keep building and not fixing what we have. I've sat in here for 27 hours and looked at the general plan. There's no thought of fixing what we have. We can't even get our kids to school with what's going on right now. The sidewalks aren't clear. The roads aren't clear. There's nobody coming here to live here. It's too expensive for people to live here. We're getting more and more taxes on our properties. We're being pushed around by people that are public servants. We're the taxpayers, people. We pay this bill. It's us. Fix what you have and go out and service what you have before you build anything else, before you go and make any new special district. It's very important. And lastly, not one word has been said about our beautiful Truckee River. It's on the EPA polluted list. My whole entire life, I fished and hunted this area. I've told this story. I'm now being advised how much fish I can eat from my own river. Women are being told not to eat fish from our Truckee River. What have we done, people? What have we done? We've ruined it. And we say we're making it better. It's not okay. I'm not a happy citizen. I'm not a happy taxpayer. And today is a day you can vote. And I urge everybody, if you're sitting at home, get up and go vote. This is no snowstorm. Go do it.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Would anyone else like to make a general public comment for item 4.0 this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move into our presentations for the evening. And we actually have several tonight. We're going to start with 5.1, which is our Veterans Recognition and Nevada County Veterans Services presentation by David West. So give me a moment. I'm going to move over to the podium and then ask a few folks to join me up there as well. Okay, so as many of you may know, the month of November is National Gratitude Month. And we'd like to start by expressing our gratitude by acknowledging and thanking all of our veterans. On Friday, November 11th at 11 a.m., the town will host our annual Veterans Day ceremony held at Victory Plaza in Commercial Row. We hope you'll all join us for this special ceremony as we reflect on the service of our veterans and the freedoms that we enjoy because of that service. Tonight, we want to specifically honor our town employees for their service. 8 of our town employees are veterans of the armed forces. Tonight, we are fortunate to have several of them here with us, and I'd like to start inviting them up to the podium. I'm going to ask Chief Renfro to also join me at the podium because we have a few items we'd like to hand out to you this evening. So I'm going to say a few more words, but as I do that, I'd like to invite up from our building division, Senior Building Inspector Dan West, U.S. Army and Vietnam veteran. From our police department, Acting Lieutenant Kyle Vickers, Corporal in the U.S. Army and Military Police. Officer Robert Yarbrough, Specialist in the U.S. Army, Military Police. Officer Corey Woodward, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, Fire Protection. Officer David McKay, Petty Officer, 2nd Class, U.S. Coast Guard, Maritime Enforcement Specialist. And Officer Brandon Mosher, Corporal, U.S. Army Military Police. I'd also like to invite up and ask Dan Wilkins to join me up as well once we hand out a few things. Tom Dwyer, U.S. Marine Corps Military Operational Safety from our Fleet Division. And again from our police department, Michael Bratt, U.S. Army Airborne Infantry. I have the honor of standing here with all of you tonight, the honor of thanking you for your service to our country and your continued service to our community. Having said that, it is certainly not lost on me that I have never worn the uniform. I have never been to war. I have never been deployed or wounded in battle. I, like so many of us in this room tonight or watching at home, have never left our families for months or years to travel the country or across the world, to fight for and defend our country and the beliefs and values that we all hold so dearly. I have not worn combat boots or experienced boot camp. I have no idea of what any of you have experienced, the bravery that you possess, the strength of commitment that you all have. So while I have started this item out as your mayor, right now I stand here, not as your mayor or as your council member. I stand here next to you as a grateful American. Thank you certainly doesn't seem adequate. But on behalf of the town of Truckee, the town council, and all of the grateful members of our community, please accept our sincerest thank you and appreciation for your service. As military veterans, you are well-trained, disciplined, and experienced. You clearly have a demonstrated heart for public service, not just in words, but in clear action. Your work ethic, your adaptability, leadership, and devotion to public service should inspire us all. Officer Woodward, I understand that you're about to be deployed for 6 months. Please know that we are here. We are here to support your family in any way that we can. We are thinking of you and your safe return home. We thank you for your continued service to our country. We have a small token of appreciation for each of you, and before I pass those out, I simply want to end with a reminder from Ronald Reagan. Some people live an entire lifetime and wonder if they have ever made a difference in the world. A veteran doesn't have that problem. Please know that we honor you, appreciate you, and recognize the difference that you have all made and continue to make, not only tonight on Veterans Day, but every day. So with that, let's pass out a few things, and then I am going to invite David West from the county to say some words. He's joining us by Zoom. Okay, let's see. So first up, I have Dan West. Thank you, sir. Sure. Ron's getting pictures and Acting Lieutenant Vickers. Thank you. Officer Yarbrough, excuse me. Thank you for your service. Officer Woodard. Thank you, sir. Officer McKay. Thank you. Officer Mosher. And for the few folks who weren't able to join us this evening, I understand that, where's Dan? There's Dan. Dan might be accepting these on their behalf. Perfect. So the first is for Tom Dwyer. Again, he's in our fleet division. Thank you. And then, let's see, from our police department, Officer Bratt. So Chief Renfro, I understand you'll accept this. Yes. Thank you. Okay, before we turn it over, Braun, I know you want a picture, so I'm going to invite you guys, Chief Renfro, invite you up as well. All right, wide view. Okay, so with that, I am going to welcome David West, Nevada County Veterans Affairs Officer, and Rachel Penna, Director of Social Services, joining us via Zoom due to the weather this evening. They're going to speak for a few moments regarding county veteran services. And David, I also wanted to thank you for your military service. Let's turn it over to the Zoom.
So we have some new technology tonight that we are working with. I believe that they are on Zoom and going to ask either Judy or Chris if they're here to help, or Connor, if we can bring them. Are they able to join us on the screen? And for anybody watching at home, we've set up the council chambers as a Zoom room. Yes, we can hear you, which is great. If you want to start providing some information on the services you provide, that would be great.
All right, I would love to. Hello, everybody. My name is David West. I'm the Nevada County Veterans Services Officer, and I'm very honored to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I apologize for not being able to make it up there, but the weather is just not going to be permitting me to make it there this evening. We are trying, so what my office does, my office is in charge of making sure the 8,500 veterans in Nevada County, to include their dependents, their surviving spouses, get all the benefits that they're entitled to, whether it be federal, state, or local benefits. Over the past year, we really tried to do it before the pandemic. I was going up myself every once a month to provide services out of the American out of the Vets Hall, the Truckee Vets Hall, the American Legion building. And then the pandemic hit and had to pull back our services. But now that the pandemic, we're pulling ourselves out. Since about January of last year, we've been making concerted effort to reestablish ourselves in Truckee. We know it's an unserved population, and we're not really doing our job. We're saying we're outreaching. We're trying to reach 8,500 veterans, and we're not making our services available to our veterans in Eastern Nevada County. So right now, on the first and third Fridays of every month, we got Miss Tracy Hart that goes up there. She provides services at the Vets Hall in the town of Truckee. She's seeing about 5 to 7 veterans a day as we build up these services, and it's been really beneficial. We're getting more contacts, we're getting more services, and hopefully, if this keeps growing, we can do this to every Friday that we're up there providing services. Another opportunity I wanted to talk to you about is, as we came out of the pandemic, we realized we wanted to do something to both honor our veterans and help our local businesses recover from the post-COVID economic downfall we were in. So last year we had our first annual Military Appreciation Week. And this year we're having our second annual. We're currently in it November 5th through the 13th. And this is where we've asked local businesses to provide promotional items or discounts to veterans as they go in their shops. One thing about veterans is we're not really good at saving our money. So if you get us to go in there, we're gonna if we have a good time, we're gonna spend our money. We're gonna tell our friends. come and visit us, or you help me get the word out so that they can come see us. Yeah, that's what I have for today. It's a little hard talking with you without seeing it all out there. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer some.
David, thank you so much. We really appreciate it and appreciate the updates and, of course, all of your work to serve our veterans throughout the county. I want to thank all of our veterans again and remind everyone, of course, that this Friday, November 11th at 11 a.m., the town is hosting our annual Veterans Day ceremony. Again, that's at Victory Plaza in Commercial Row. Thank you again.
Thank you. And I just want to say, if you want me to come back when the weather permits, and I can come and do something in person, where it really carries a lot more weight, I'd be more than happy to do so.
We would love that. We'll take you up on it. Okay. Thank you, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with that, we are going to move on to agenda item 5.2. This is our Recognition of Gratitude Month. I have a few words, and then I'm going to turn it over to some of my fellow council members. The theme for tonight is strong and it's clear: gratitude. I didn't actually know there was a designated national month for gratitude, but when we started talking about it, we thought, what a great concept this is, and what a great opportunity it is to honor people and organizations throughout our community. Gratitude really is the simplest way to change one's perspective of the world. And coincidentally or not, Veterans Day, World Kindness Day, and Thanksgiving all fall in Gratitude Month. So this year, this inaugural year of the town celebrating Gratitude Month, I would like to take a few minutes to speak to the symbol of gratitude. Until recently, there wasn't an official symbol of gratitude. The modern day symbol is believed to be tied to Celtic symbolism, and you can see it up on our screen. It represents how gratitude is the center of all things. The gratitude symbol has a couple of different parts: a simple spiral center and 3 circular dots on the lower exterior of the spiral. It also has a third secondary part on the bottom of the spiral, which resembles a hook. This hook is recognized as a makau, which has a significance in Hawaiian cultures. When dissecting the symbol closely, there is also a subtle lowercase g on the inside of the symbol, subtly representing gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for in Truckee. We have countless community partners. We have members who provide service to our community through volunteerism, advocacy, support. Our special district partners who provide valuable functions throughout the community. Our numerous nonprofit partners, our advocates who collaborate with the town and our teams on a regular basis to bring forward better policy, solutions, and services to our residents. There are so many partners in our town that it is hard to identify just a few. From the Trails Foundation, Friends of the Library, Land Trust, I could go on and on. But this year, again, as our inaugural gratitude celebration, each council member was asked to identify one recipient of gratitude to recognize this evening. This was an incredibly difficult task, and while we all selected an organization or team for which we are grateful, I want to be clear. This in no way is meant to diminish or dismiss all of the community partners and advocates throughout our community. Everyone is a valued partner and friend working in service to our beloved Truckee and Tahoe region, and I am so grateful for those partnerships. Tonight, our council members have each invited an organization or team to present them with plaques of gratitude. Again, a reminder of our gratitude and appreciation to their service in our community. First, I'm going to start by inviting my fellow council members up to the podium. Some of our recipients are here in person tonight. Many are not due to the weather, and so some will also be Zooming in. I am going to start with Council Member Klövstad and the SWEP team.
I don't believe anybody from SWEP is here, right? Or is there anybody? No, it's just.
They requested Zoom.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just stay here, okay? Missy, I saw you earlier. I can't wait to give this to you.
I'm here on Zoom.
Okay, great.
Very grateful. I tried in so many ways to get there. I'm so sorry.
No worries. This is why we are adaptive. Okay, so Missy Moeller is here joining us tonight. Executive we should partner on these things. And I knew pretty immediately that this was a partnership that was going places. We immediately understood that we would always be better working together than we could ever be apart. And then one of my very first council meetings, so that was back in 2009, right, Missy? And then one of my first council meetings in 2018, Missy comes in with a whole bunch of green teamers from the elementary school, Echo Action Club members from the middle school, and Envirolution Club members from the high school. And they did a presentation to our council about straws, plastic straws, and the damage that they were doing to the environment. And from that, and they requested that we do something about this. So at that point, I asked our staff and our fellow council members to support me in developing a single-use plastic foodware ban. And I'm very excited to note that today, during our next agenda item, we will be having the second reading and hopefully adopting that program that was inspired by Missy and her students. So I could not be happier to have this come full circle. So thank you, SWEP and Missy, and the students for your inspiration and support in fighting plastic pollution and spreading knowledge of all the ways we can love and protect Mother Earth. You have my respect and my undying appreciation for all you do, Missy, to educate not just our youth, but our entire community through the youth that you touch and the programs that they expand upon. You are the quintessence of the ripple effect of good. Thank you, Missy.
Wow. May I ask if I can answer or respond?
Of course, you may say a few words if you'd like.
Okay. I just want to say how honored I am for this recognition and for this award. I feel the same way you do, Anna, for the connection and our past and what we've done together. But I want to say to the town of Truckee how honored SWEP is. As you know, we work to promote stewardship by connecting students to the community and the environment. And you've given us so many opportunities of how to show the students all the opportunities for connecting them and for making a difference, for working towards keeping Truckee green. We years ago we started with students when Revolutions first began 12 years ago with working on the plastic bag ban. And many of the students, there's a few on the Zoom right now, love working on the policy side of things. We also do the restoration, and there's been so many parts that you at the town of Truckee have helped us connect the students. We believe that action fosters hope, and you've given us many opportunities for action. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for the award. I thank you for these opportunities, and especially your partnership. Thank you.
It's an honor, Missy. Thank you.
We're going to have a few of these, but I think a round of applause is in order. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I love hearing about the connections and how those formed. It's so special. Councilmember Zabriskie, I'll turn over to you and Sierra Community House.
Could you just go ahead and say your name? And
Yeah. My name is Mariana Jimenez. I am the board chair for Sierra Community House.
Thank you, Mariana. Yeah. And just wait. Yeah, I want to express my gratitude to the Sierra Community House for the essential services it provides our community. It directly helps the most vulnerable among us, people working low-paying jobs who also struggle with financial, medical, behavioral, and domestic issues. The need is reflected in the help provided by the community house. The food pantry program provided over 1/2 million meals to people in need over the course of a recent 15-month period. The Crisis Intervention Services serves to protect community members from domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. They took in 1,600 calls concerning mental health and basic needs over those same 15 months. The promotoras, who specialize in safety net services, helped 1,200 individuals secure improved housing and utility assistance. The community house helps all of us by empowering people to become more productive members of our community. It reduces the workload for the town, the county, the hospital, and the fire districts by reducing the need for emergency, police, and social services. The people who provide these services, they work at a fraction of what they could earn in private. In the private sector, all I can figure is they have a special gene for both compassion and empathy. Expressing recognition for what they do only repays a small part of what we owe them. I'm grateful I can participate in providing that recognition, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide the community house with this plaque, and thank you for being here. Would you like to say any words about? Good.
Oh, sure.
But let's do a picture. Okay.
I just want to say thank you, council member, for this recognition, and thank you to our staff and our volunteers and my fellow board members. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, Vice Mayor Romack, I think you're up.
All right. Suzanne, come on up. Hold on, we got to get our phones ready for pictures. And I
request. Carol is watching.
Is she on Zoom? It looked like somebody. Okay. So thank you, Mayor Henderson, for your words to open this, because it was very challenging to select one organization. I know all my fellow council members felt that way because there are so many wonderful organizations and volunteers. So thank you to everybody in this community. But tonight, I specifically wanted to honor and thank Kids Zone Museum for what they do for our community. Kids Zone Museum has been an organization in our community for 30 years, and they've been helping and inspiring families and kids throughout that entire time. I learned last week at the Kids Zone Luncheon that they first started out in a little storefront by Tacos Jalisco, then moved to their current location and have big plans to have an even bigger and better facility to help our kids from infancy to teenage years, hopefully coming soon. Their mission is to inspire learning through creative play and discovery. And I first learned about Kids Zone when I was at the radio station, 101.5 Truckee Tahoe Radio. I remember interviewing Carol many years ago, and I thought, wow, that's a neat place. But now, as a mother of a toddler, I really recognize the value for our community, especially when you have an active toddler and you have stormy days when you're trying to entertain them. Their current Sierra Settlers exhibit is a wonderful area where kids don't even realize that they are learning while they're playing. They're putting coal into an old train. They're serving goods at the Chinese herb shop. And so it's incredible to see them interacting with our Truckee history without realizing it. And then when you have days like today, when it's stormy outside, you can bring them to the Kids Zone. They can play at the indoor playground, get creative at the art center. So it's just a really incredible place. Kids Zone is also prides themselves on being inclusive, and I know that's a really important value to our council and the town. They offer bilingual programs, and I know they work with our social service organizations as well to provide programs and services so that way we can meet the needs of all of our families throughout the community. So again, Kids Zone has been here for 30 years, and they've played a vital role in so many lives. I was thinking, you know, if somebody was 2, like my son is now, when the Kids Zone first opened, they'd be 32 today, and they're probably bringing their kids to the Kids Zone. So they've just been this integral part of Truckee in developing our young minds and our future leaders. So I wanted to honor Kids Zone today, and I heard we have Carol on Zoom. I know we have a board member, Suzanne here, and Natalie, staff member. So join me in applauding Kids Zone Museum.
Thank you, Lindsay. This is Carol, and I'm on the Zoom, and I can't figure out how to get my picture to show, but I'll let Natalie and Suzanne accept the award. And I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing the Kids Zone Museum and for your great comments. We're so excited.
Let Carol talk for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Yes, all right, so I just wanted to thank the town and all of our community members that work closely with us to reach all families and children in the community, and our team, which is awesome, including our volunteers and our board and our staff. So thank you for the recognition.
Okay, as Vice Mayor Romack is making her way back up, I'm going to share mine, and unfortunately, they were going to be here in person and weren't able to, so we don't have them with us tonight, but we'll make sure we get their plaques to them. It is my unique honor to share my gratitude for both Court Levy and Katie Sheehan and her team at Clean Tahoe. Without our natural environment, we truly lose who we are as our community. Our natural landscape provides so much to all of us: beauty, serenity, solitude, opportunities for reconnecting with ourselves and with one another. Court has been a tireless advocate for protecting our environment and reducing litter throughout the North Lake Tahoe region. He is fearless in his pursuit to ensure that we all do our part to keep our region pristine, through education, his documentaries on litter in the region, and his public engagement. He also created the Tahoe Truckee Litter Group on Facebook, which has more than 2,600 followers. Clean Tahoe is a community-based nonprofit dedicated to improving the Lake Tahoe region through proper litter and trash management and public education. I learned that the original program was actually founded in 1988 in South Lake, when a group of concerned citizens banded together to tackle illegal litter and dumping concerns. Clean Tahoe expanded to North Lake Tahoe and Truckee in the summer of 2021 to help meet the need of providing regional litter mitigation for neighboring partners. And it was then that the town of Truckee began its partnership with the organization. During the June through August summer months, Clean Tahoe collected 80 bags of trash from Truckee's main thoroughfares. While we wish this litter didn't exist in the first place, and we continue to work on policies to reduce the origins of this type of litter, we are thankful for Clean Tahoe's partnership and unwavering dedication. Katie and her Truckee field staff member, Stefan, are a pleasure to work with, and we are so grateful for their work. I also wanted to share that overall, during the 2020-21 fiscal year, Clean Tahoe removed over 500,000 pounds of total trash from the Lake Tahoe region. Their incredible documentation showing before and after photos demonstrates the power of dedication, sheer will, and manpower in restoring areas to their natural state. Finally, Court and Clean Tahoe recently partnered to develop a video highlighting some of their litter removal and mitigation efforts. We look forward to collaborating with both Court and Clean Tahoe on future projects to increase community awareness and engagement to keep our natural environment pristine. Court and Katie, thank you for your tireless work. You set examples that our entire community should live by, and I am unendingly grateful. All right, I know they're not here, but they may be watching, so let's give them a round of applause. Okay, and we do have one from Councilmember Pallavi. He is running late. He will be here this evening, so I'm gonna hop up to the podium because we have someone from Sierra Business Council here with us this evening and another on Zoom. Okay, so I'm reading this as if I was Councilmember Pallavi. These are his words. I'm honored to present my gratitude award to the Sierra Business Council. As they put it, SBC serves the economic, environmental, and social needs of our region, catalyzing innovative solutions and increasing resilience throughout the Sierra. I wholeheartedly agree with this mission statement and believe that without them, our community and those around us would be less prosperous than they are today. There are three main areas where I see SBC's strengths shining through, and although they are a regional organization, their actions in and around Truckee have been numerous and successful. Through their economic development programs, they have supported hundreds of local Truckee and Sierra businesses. SBC has directly contributed to the community character we all cherish so much. Without our local businesses lining our historic district, Truckee would lose so much of the culture that we are famously known for. Second, I attribute the state's attention to the Sierra, to Truckee, and our region to Sierra Business Council. SBC has staked out territory in Sacramento and worked with our legislative advocates, Mountain Housing Council, and our representatives to channel investment, policy, and attention to this community. Lastly, as conveners of the Climate Transformation Alliance and Green Business Network, to name just a few, they express their unique capability to bring many disparate sectors together to work towards common goals. Sierra Business Council brings so much investment into our region, nurtures the businesses and initiatives that wouldn't exist without them. A little bit of feedback. And convenes powerful programs like the CTA that simply lift up our community to a new high. It is with the utmost of gratitude that I thank the Sierra Business Council for all this capital that they have brought to Truckee and our surrounding communities. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. We have Steve Frisch, I believe, on the Zoom with us, so I would present this to you. Get a little picture. Okay. Thank you. And Katie, I would invite you or Steve to say a few words if you would like.
Steve is the wordsmith. I can't see if he's up there, but thank you, Councilman.
Well, Katie, I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute because you have to say the final thank you. So get ready in your head to do that. But I just want to say thanks so much to the town of Truckee for this recognition. We really, truly appreciate it. It is a partnership that we very highly value. The relationship between the Sierra Business Council and the town on a wide range of issues is incredibly important to us. And we share so many values. It's obvious in the town and the town's policies and the way it manages the community and in our shared vision for the region. So thank you so much for that partnership. In the spirit of gratitude and that symbol that you described, Courtney, I want to say none of this would be possible without first a team of incredible, young, hard-charging, kind of smart people at SBC who really care about the region and want to do the right thing, like Katie in the room today. My friend Kristen, who manages the organization with me, describes them as brains on fire, which I really like. And without all the community organizations represented here tonight, who do so much fantastic work. Like, we would not be able to get our work done without all the organizations in the region that are doing great things that we can partner with as well. So thanks so much for this recognition. And for a final thank you, I'll hand it over to Katie.
Thank you. We'll allow this to motivate us further and keep those brains on fire, as you said. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you to all of the organizations, partners, tireless advocates within our community. We're grateful for all of you. With that, we are going to actually take a 10-minute break so that folks in the room can sort of mingle. If there's any other gratitude that you want to express while we're all here together, we have some cookies at the back of the room, any other photo ops, etc. So it's 5:49. We will come back at 5:59. Thank you. We are going to start with our next presentation. We are on item 5.3, which is going to be a presentation regarding legislative advocacy by Emmanuel Jones and Associates. Nope, excuse me. We're continuing that to December 13th. Thank you. Okay. So moving right on to item 5.4, employee incentive awards.
Great, thank you. Again, this is one of my favorite things to do. This is when employees in the town nominate their fellow coworkers for incentive awards based on our town values. And so we have a few of those tonight. We shared these with our employees last week at our all-employee meeting, and now we'd like to share them with the council and the community. So first we have Mike Vaughn. He's in our engineering department, and he was nominated by Becky, our engineering manager, for his teamwork and commitment. And this is what Becky had to say about Mike. I'm going to read that for you all. I would like to nominate Mike for an Employee Incentive Award for all the work he has performed on projects in the Coldstream area, an area which has transformed for the better in recent years due to significant infrastructure investment made by the town, the developer, and a significant affordable housing and sustainability communities grant. Some of Mike's accomplishments include successfully managing the Donner Pass Road Coldstream I-80 roundabout project, which required close coordination with Caltrans and regularly checking in on site and operations on holidays or after hours at night. Not only did he manage the design, bid, and contract award, but he stepped up to perform resident engineer duties when our regular seasonal resident engineer was unable to do so. This shows his commitment and teamwork. The utility coordination on this project was also challenging, but this is an area where Mike excels. Relationships mean a lot to Mike, and it shows on projects that require that you manage relocations for new constructions, interactions with TDPUD, TSD, AT&T, Altice, and Kinder Morgan. He also oversaw the design and construction of the Donner Creek Culvert project, which made room for the roundabout, and led the infrastructure review for Coldstream development, including the affordable housing, the roundabout, and the entrance to the development. He was even the engineering lead on the Coldstream specific plan adoption in 2014. So the theme is everything Coldstream. Mike had a hand at playing, and it's appropriate to recognize him and thank him for his teamwork and commitment in that project. And then Mike happened to nominate Octavio and his team for their teamwork and commitment with all the striping that was completed this season. So Octavio is in our roads crew. He's one of our supervisors, and his team consisted of Dave Scott, Steve Seitz, Jesse Martinez, Grant Gray. We had Chad Nelson and Ryan Zusi offering some expertise and layout assistance, and then our mechanics, Nick Kyle and John Hood, who had to help with some equipment issues. And Mike, as I mentioned, is one of our engineers, and he wrote an incredibly technical reason why he nominated this team down to the detail of the width of the striping that they completed in each section. So I'm going to condense this a little bit and just share a few of the highlights of what Octavio and his team accomplished this year. So he did start out his nomination by acknowledging how flexible the team had to be this year with the number of projects and the amount of striping they had to complete. Typically with the annual paving and draining project, there are a few streets that require restriping after the repaving. This season, all of the roads had to be restriped. It was 8.5 miles of roads that the team restriped this season. In addition, they striped the buffered bike lanes on Northwoods and Glenshire. We had some equipment issues while out on Glenshire, and our mechanics came in to get those fixed, but those have been a great addition to the town this season, and they're also very detailed and required a lot of work to complete the striping. The crew also reconfigured the striping layout at Pioneer Trail between the newly developed CHP station and Pioneer East development. The section of the roadway includes bike lanes and two-way center turn lanes following the recent roadway widening by the projects. And then also coordinated with Coldstream Roundabout, they allowed the developer there to use our bike lane stencils and coordinating getting those to the developer in order to have consistency with the whole project. So we thank Octavio and his crew for those efforts over this summer. And then lastly, we have our Chief of Police, Danny Renfro, Dev Acuff, and Braun Roberts, and this was for their teamwork, commitment, and excellence. And this award was presented to these three for their response and participation in representing the town and supporting the Kylie and Rodney investigation. As you all know, that was not a investigation that we were lead agency on. It was outside of town limits. Danny, Dev, and Braun spent pretty much every day there until Kylie was brought home and represented the town. We provided whatever support we could through the three of them, from communications to just police support and any of the equipment or anything we had that we could offer. And want to thank Dev and Braun and Danny for taking the lead on that for us. And those are our incentive awards tonight. Appropriate that it's Gratitude Month and we're able to share those. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Congratulations to all of our employees. Again, it's really nice to hear and sort of understand what a lot of our staff are actually working on, because we don't get to see that on a day-to-day basis necessarily. So thank you for that. Let's move on to 5.5, our town manager report. Jen, right back to you.
Great, thank you. I was going to keep this short tonight, but we have a few things we do want to highlight, so please bear with me for a few minutes. First, some really exciting news to share. This is hot off the press. We hit 100. So what does that mean? Our Lease to Locals program has just converted our 100th home into long-term rentals. That means we have housed 181 members of our workforce, including and in addition to 41 children. So 222 locals have been housed through that program and was supporting them living where they work. So wanted to acknowledge that and share that with everybody. Also a reminder, tomorrow night is our second THAP, Truckee Home Access Program Educational Workshop. If you are a buyer, a seller, or developer interested in looking at home ownership or providing a home opportunity to somebody in our local workforce region, please sign up to attend. We have multiple webinars and educational seminars happening over this month and into December. The seminar tomorrow will include Spanish translation for anybody that's interested. They're all virtual. You can sign up on our website to get a link to attend that. And again, that's assistance where we purchase deed restrictions on homes to preserve that for our local workforce. We had our first one last night and over 30 participants attended, so good participation. You may not be aware, and you probably haven't heard me say this at all, but the town's hiring. So if you're interested in joining our team, we have police officer positions, street positions, pretty much everything in between. So check out our website and consider welcoming in the new year with a new job and a new work family. Now I'm going to defer to a couple folks down here on my left. Danielle, if you can give us a brief update on the general plan, and then we'll turn to Dan and he can give us a storm update.
Great, thanks, Jen. So I'm happy to report that the Board of Forestry reviewed our draft safety and noise element on the 1st of November, and we received comments like it was well written and very clear. So I think that's an attestament to our staff doing a lot of hard work on this with our consultants and really dialing into what the Board of Forestry wanted to see in the requirements. So that means we don't have to do any further action with them. They did have a couple of interesting suggestions that we're going to take a look at. So although not requirements, I think useful. We have an action currently that talks about working with our local insurance companies. So they were curious how that would actually be feasible. Just because we're looking at trying to find incentives to get more insurance companies to continue to insure our homes here. I think they thought that was very broad-reaching, but we think it's beneficial because we want to make sure that our homes can have insurance on them. And then the second one was looking at a potential retrofit program to get homeowners to be able to make their homes more prepared for wildfire. So we have that kind of work already happening with some stuff that Hillary's doing, but I think they thought it'd be helpful to just solidify that in our general plan as an action. So those are good suggestions, but overall very positive feedback from them, and it will allow us to continue on our same time frame that we have presented to you, March.
Dan, can you give us an update on the storm, please?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, it snowed. A couple times. I thought I'd just give you an update on kind of where we're at in our snow removal operation. So as the council knows, in the wintertime, what we do is we double our staff so that we can provide daytime coverage and nighttime coverage. So at the beginning of a winter season and the end of a winter season, we're typically handling storms with our full-time staff, and then there's a ramping up of bringing in seasonal employees. Typically between Thanksgiving and Christmas is typically when we're bringing them in, and then it's typically late February into mid-March when they're phasing out. So what we've done this year is, fortunately, some of our seasonals were available to basically start a month earlier than normal. So we're at about 75% of our full winter staffing level right now. As Jen mentioned, we are hiring. We've got about 8 or 9 positions that remain open to get to our full staffing level, which is where we would hope to be between Christmas and New Year's timeframe. So where we're at right now is we've got all the school bus routes have 24/7 coverage. So we've got day crew and night crew on the school bus routes, so they're being plowed, 5 to 6 times a day. And then our local routes, which are the subdivision streets, are being plowed on a day shift, and then no plowing at night, and then we'll go back and plow in the morning. We're bringing people in early to do a downtown cleanup because we can't really do snow removal in downtown Truckee during the day because of the number of cars that are down there. So we've got folks that are coming in at 3 in the morning, doing a downtown cleanup until about 7 or so, and then they're heading out into the subdivisions. So that's how we're responding to the current storm cycle, kind of with that's a bit earlier than we're typically having our staffing to on board to deal with more of a peak winter or a midwinter situation. And then there was a question about the snow days. Ultimately, the Truckee Unified School District Transportation Department and Superintendent makes the decision on when to call a snow day or not. Our staff will communicate with their staff usually around 4 in the morning, give them an update as to road conditions in Truckee, what our staffing plan is for the day, et cetera. And then the school district also communicates with our road maintenance counterparts on the North Shore in Placer County, because the school district is making decisions based on not only Truckee, but also the North Shore. And then I think they're also considering weather forecasts, what the expected visibility is going to be during the time periods when school buses would be on the road. And I think they also consider the condition of the school sites themselves. And I think all that goes into the school district's decision-making process on when to call a snow day and when not. So again, we're an input into that process, but we don't make the final decision. And our goal is to have the roads be clear enough so that the roads in Truckee are not the reason that a snow day gets called. So anyway, that's it.
Great, thanks, Dan. And last for me tonight, I just would like to remind everybody that Town Hall will be closed on Friday, this coming Friday, the 11th, in observance of Veterans Day, as well as November 24th and 25th in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, with that, we're through our presentations. Do I have any comments or questions from my fellow council members? This side? No? This side? None. Okay. So let me open the presentation items to public comment. If anyone wants to make a public comment on any of the presentations, you may do so now.
No, I did have a quick question just on the THAP program. It's all the same, right? All 4 sessions are the same.
Yes, you are required to attend a session before submitting your application.
Thank you. Sorry. Public comment is still open. I was just giving you guys more time.
Just to clarify that two of these sessions have Spanish translation. So tomorrow night is one of the 2 that does have translation.
Thank you, Hillary, and great question. Okay, so I'm just going to check again. Anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on any of the presentations?
Could you please give us the 4 presentations so we make sure we don't miss what we're here for? What are the 4 presentations that are up for comment right now? Please.
Thank you. Okay, so we had, let me just go back in my notes here because there's a lot. 5.1 was our veterans recognition. 5.2 were our gratitude recognitions. 5.4 were the employee incentive awards, and 5.5 the town manager report. 5.3 is being continued to December 13th.
Understood. That's not the one we're looking for. But I do want to add one thing then to the Veterans Day. So immediately following the Veterans Day celebration downtown, just want to let people know that there will be free lunch for the veterans and their families up at the Veterans Hall. So everybody understand that's being provided by Wagon Train. So everybody's invited. It's all in order this season. So as soon as the presentation is complete, come on up for some free lunch and join your veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Would anyone else like to make a public comment on any of the presentation items this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we'll move to consent. And we have several items tonight. 6.1, the minutes for October 25th, 2022. 6.2, the second reading of the single-use foodware reduction ordinance. 6.3, approval of local partnership program formulaic grant funding application for the Rail Yard Transit Center. 6.4, Mills Act Historic Preservation Contract Agreement. 6.5, appointment of arts advocate to the Public Art Commission of Truckee. 6.6, fiscal year 22-23 claim for Transportation Development Act State Transit Assistance Capital Funds from the Nevada County Transportation Commission and associated budget amendment. 6.7, 2022 Cal OES High Frequency Radio Grant. And finally, 6.8, approval of a side letter with the Truckee General Employees Membership Association providing a base wage increase for qualifying street maintenance equipment operator 2s. With that, do I have any member of council who would like to pull a consent item tonight? No. Any member of staff who would like to pull a consent item tonight?
No.
Thank you. Any member of the public who would like to pull a consent item this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion to pass our consent calendar?
I will make a motion to pass the consent calendar.
And I would like to second, just with the caveat of the, it's a little bit unceremonious adoption of our single-use plastic, but I'm grateful to have it that way. We did hope to have a room packed full of students that were here to acknowledge and celebrate this great time, but the weather had a different plan. But with that, I am very excited to second this motion and for final adoption.
Thank you, Councilmember Klofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent calendar passes unanimously. Moving right on to our discussion items. Our first one is 7.1, the West River Street Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District Number 1 Public Hearing, Property Ballot Tabulation, and Resolution 2022-68. As always, we're going to start with a presentation. Jessica, you're going to give that this evening, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. We'll have council questions, and then I will open the public hearing for anyone who would like to make a comment in support or opposition to this. Jessica, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Mayor Henderson and council members. Tonight we have West River Landscaping and Lighting District Number 1. This is a public hearing, property ballot tabulation, and adoption of the resolution. I am showing you here in this slide the West River Landscaping and Lighting District area and the assessment allocation. This project would provide sidewalks and connections for ADA accessibility through the area between Bridge Street and Mill Street. The red outline you see in the slide is the assessment district area. It includes the kind of commercial zone right in the beginning before Bridge Street, as well as some of the area along Bridge Street to connect the area from the south side of the river to downtown. This district also shows you the different colors of what the areas mean, which is the turquoise is the private property frontage area. The orange and the green landscaping is shared by all within this district. It is the sidewalks along the frontage of the parking lots and the landscaping that goes along with them. The dark blue you see over here is the town of Truckee property. where the future park will be located. And the pink is the general benefit area. So the sidewalk connecting the parking lots and some areas along Bridge Street, such as on Bridge Street by the railroad tracks and across the Truckee River Bridge. I also wanted to point out that this project required us to purchase the easements for these parking lots and for the sidewalk along the north side in order to continue with this project. That was just over a $2 million purchase for those easements. This project will be close to a $9 million project, and the town will be also maintaining both of the parking lots that are part of this, and as we do currently, which includes snow off-hauling, paving, slurry, enforcement, that sort of thing for these parking lots.
And just on top of that, just because everything's so tight, all the sidewalk snow kind of ends up getting mixed in with the street and the parking lot snow, which then is also off-hauled by the town. And the cost of that is not, that's something that the town would provide as opposed to being provided as through the maintenance district. So it's not fully quantified what the value of that is, but it's not cheap.
So what the West River Landscaping and Lighting District would provide is the routine maintenance of sidewalks, landscaping, and utilities. The sidewalk maintenance includes the snow removal, including the hand removal around the meters, trash bins, that sort of thing, sweeping, snow off-hauling as needed, sidewalk repair, trash pickup, maintenance of amenities such as the benches and bike racks, and that sort of thing. Landscaping includes weeding, plant replacement, all the water service costs, irrigation, and backflow maintenance. The utilities include license agreements, like leases for with the railroad. This is not town property. And district administration reserves for management of the landscaping and lighting district, as well as the insurance deductible. In total, this maintenance cost is estimated about $90,300 per year. And that is the basis of how we come up with the assessment for the landscape and lighting district. As part of this budget, there is a general benefit, so those areas that everyone will get benefit from, such as crossing on the Truckee River, there is no property adjacent to that, next to Bridge Street, which is a railroad crossing and that sort of thing, and the town is picking that up as a general benefit at $16,393. That's about 18% of the total maintenance budget cost. The remaining of the portion of that budget is to be paid by the property owners. And these property owners for the landscape and lighting district get one vote per $1 that they are assessed. The town portion of the property portion on the park is about $30,639, and the portion paid by the other property owners is about $43,268. So the total by the property owners is $73,907. In general, the town is going to be funding 52% of all these maintenance costs. We have received some public comment for the landscape and lighting district. We have received the request that we use the parking fees to fund the sidewalk maintenance along with the parking lots. The parking fees fund the lot snow removal, off-hauling maintenance, paving, slurry enforcement, and easement lease costs. So we used parking district fee funds to buy those easements. We also received the comment that the town should not vote, that it is a conflict of interest. However, the town does own a parcel in this district and we are allowed to vote. It might be something different if we were asking to not have to pay for our maintenance on that lot, but we're not asking for that. We are, willing to pay for that. We've also received the request that the east side of the Mill Street sidewalk should be general benefit. However, this sidewalk is not being built as part of the town projects. If it is built, it would be built as part of that redevelopment of that lot and would be as a benefit to them. We've also received the request that a bump out at the Garden Folly should not be assessed to the private property, and it should be a general benefit. So I have a couple slides kind of showing that area. And just to go further, that the town has developed quite a few districts in this town recently. Brickletown, Envision DPR, Coldstream, Jorga Ranch, and the Rail Yard. These are either community facilities districts or landscape and lighting districts. And we are trying to be consistent with how we distribute the assessments to all the different property facilities districts, not just this one. So that the way we have distributed this would be consistent with how we have done it on other districts in town. And this is a slide showing the Garden Folly building where the bump out is located. This building is located where we're going to have to make a slight curve in the street to make room for the buildings that stick out into the road. The property owners adjacent to this area have also expressed the desire to keep some parking in front of the buildings. And so we have kept some parking, the parallel parking you see here, but in order to shade these parking stalls from oncoming traffic, it needed the curb to kind of follow the curve of that road and shield those vehicles. Otherwise, I think you would be, as a car coming eastbound, you would kind of end up right in the back of those cars. So that helps with doing that. But this area I've shaded is I would say the extra area for that bump out. It's approximately 200 square feet of extra area. And then for tonight, we have the recommendation. So we are opening the public hearing to accept the public testimony, provide an opportunity for votes to be cast prior to close of public hearing, then close the public hearing, and the council will direct the town clerk to tally the official votes. Council will continue with the next agenda item, and then when the tally is complete, we will reopen this item and adopt the resolution declaring the results. If it is an affirmative vote, direct staff to record the notice of special tax lien and introduce resolution 2022-68, and also direct staff to advertise the project for construction bids. If it is a negative vote, discuss the direction of the West River Street streetscape project. And then that is what I have for this evening. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, with that, we'll move right into council questions, and I will start perhaps over on this side. Vice Mayor Romack, do you have any questions about this presentation?
I do not. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Pallavi? None. Councilmember Klofstad?
No, Dan and I had a very in-depth conversation about it yesterday. Thank you very much for your time, and I answered all my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie?
Yes, Jessica, the owner that wants to shift the costs of the bump out, had that owner requested a street parking? Was he in favor of additional street parking on West River?
Yes.
Okay.
So the owner's here, it's Joe McGinnity, Joe and Shelley McGinnity.
Okay. Thank you. And then it did strike me that the bump out was a safety feature, but I believe you had explained, which to me struck me as a general, a more, something that we all share in. We all want a safety feature. But I believe you explained, is the reason for attributing it to the property owner, is that in order to be consistent with our practice with the other similar assessment districts? Or is there more to it than that?
It's partially that, and also within this district, there are other areas. If you look just up the street, there's another area where there's this similar type of transition that's going on. It's kind of the light blue area to the right, further to the right,
dip out.
even further to the right of there, like right in that area. And when the engineer's report was put together, that was an issue that was looked at. And ultimately the determination of the engineer who drafted the engineer's report was that that wider sidewalk also provides additional opportunities for the adjacent building and tenants, to activate the sidewalk as a part of it. Now, with the current tenants, that may not be the case, but potentially other tenants might have the flexibility of activating a portion of the sidewalk for business activity because it's wide enough that you could still maintain a pedestrian corridor through there. So I think that was part of the consideration of the engineer when they drafted the engineer's report as well.
So the property owner at the bump out would be able to activate a portion of it, or is it simply possible?
So the on Commercial Row, there's various businesses that activate the sidewalk as a part of their business activity. Bar of America is an example, Moody's is an example, Squeeze In. Those happen to be restaurants. This building is not a restaurant use currently. Right. But there's some areas where they activate the sidewalk for retail sale. They're only able to do that in areas where the sidewalk is wide enough that you can have business activity and still maintain a pedestrian path of travel, which generally we're looking for a 6-foot wide pedestrian path of travel. So in this case, while the main driver of the bump out is getting the traffic shifted to avoid the on-street parking, the net result is you end up with a wider sidewalk there that has the potential for activation, whereas a lot of the other businesses up and down the line don't have that same possibility because the sidewalk's not quite as wide. So now that with the current tenants there and the current use of the building, that may not be used immediately. It creates some flexibility for the future, though. Okay. So I think that was part of the rationale there, or a significant portion of the rationale.
Okay. My other question concerns a different comment, and that was the one about whether the property owner should bear the cost of the maintenance in front of the Jack's parking lot and then the future Mill Street parking lot. And as I understood their comment, they felt that, I guess they felt that those sidewalks would be used for people accessing the park, the public facilities farther west. And I was having trouble understanding that because it seems like it would also be used by people taking advantage of the private businesses right there.
It would be used by the park as well as all the other property owners. But as you can see, the park would be paying the same rate as everybody else to contribute to their fair share of maintenance of those sidewalks in both of them.
Okay, so. Those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing on this. So this is an opportunity for anyone to speak in support or opposition to the action that we're discussing. As always, you have 3 minutes and your timer is over on this side of the dais, and you can step up to the podium now.
Good evening, mayors, councilmen, staff. My name is Joe McGinnity. Shelley and I own the Garden Folly. Excuse me. And we're talking about excess of sidewalk. As it's been established, a 6-foot wide sidewalk for our property would be 360 square feet. What we're being assessed for are 872 square feet, almost 2.5 times what a minimum standard would be. I have a real problem with that because instead of paying a minimum, which would be like $950 odd, we're going to be assessed for over $2,200. It's a big bite. It's a small building. We don't have that many square feet that we get that kind of income. And there's another issue that bothers me is that we did talk about parallel parking out in front. When we remodeled the entire building, I think it was in 2003, we had to provide 7 parking spots, 2 in the front, 5 in the back. It's been adequate for the building. What we're generating now, I don't know how many spots you're generating with this bump out, but it's more than 2 parking spots, correct?
Yes, it's more than 2.
That's addressed to you, Dan.
Well, so I would, if the mayor would like me, or the council would like me to respond to that, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Go
we can move on. You can see that it's more than 2 spots. Anyway, that's fine.
Right, but so what's happening on the south side of the street is there's actually a reduction of parking. So there's a significant amount of angle parking on the south side of the street and some parallel parking. So I think it's maybe a matter of perspective of the bump out shades the parallel spots, but we're actually reducing the number of parallel spots that are currently there, if that makes sense.
So anyway, sorry about that. So I do have an issue with paying 2.5 times what I think the minimum standard would be. And the effect of it is, yeah, it provides a realignment of the street, which provides parallel parking, and that's great. But, you know, I really have an issue with it. I'd like some consideration. That's all. I mean, I try to be reasonable. Kind of concerned about the open end of what's going to happen next year, too. We don't really have any limitations on where you're going to go because you don't know what's going to cost you to maintain it either. So that's basically, I think it's the bump out is more of a use for the general public than it is specifically for the property. That's just my opinion. Thanks.
And Mayor, I just want to jump in, sorry to interrupt you, and remind everybody that we do have the clock going, so we'll write down your questions, and after you're done with your public comment, we'll respond to those, but we don't want to interrupt your 3 minutes and lose. We can do that, but we don't want to interrupt your 3 minutes and make sure everybody has the same amount of time. So staff too, if we can just hold off on responding until the end.
That sounds great, Jen. Thank you for that. And I think Judy's moving up to turn our clock on us. Would anyone else like to make a comment for this public proceeding?
My name is Shinyi McKinney. My husband Reed and I are property owners of 10199 West River Street. So I'm here today to request the town to reduce the special benefit assessment tax for this district. So pursuant to the California Constitution, the assessment can only be made for special benefits. I think everybody acknowledged that already, as opposed to be general benefits. And there are some areas. One area is in front of Mill Street. As you can see on the screen or on your plan, the maintenance of Jack's frontage on Bridge Street, both sides, east and west, it's included currently as general benefit because they provide primary pedestrian facility connecting the West River Street and downtown. So under the same case of sidewalk serving as general benefit to the public, the Mill Street sidewalks should receive fair treatment as a general benefit, because you can see the Mill Street sidewalk is connecting this entire parking lot, which this is phase 2. Over 110 parking stalls, and people will go through this sidewalk and down Mill Street and go use the bridge, connect to the Legacy Trail, as well as go to the park. And the property.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can you go back to the microphone? It's really a challenge to hear you, and there's no way the public can hear you.
Thank you.
The property owner, the property tenant will use the West River Street sidewalk. And as you can see, it's even more than Mill Street sidewalk square footage, as well as the back Riverside Road. So the parking, it's 110 parking spots. People will use that and to go to the new West River Park and its restaurant and the new bridge to the Legacy Trail. but under the current report, engineer report, this portion is considered as a special benefit. But Mill Street sidewalk is unproportionally benefits the general public, as you can tell from the drawing. So under this apparent reasoning, so as the sidewalk primarily serve as a general benefit to the public, we think the construction and maintenance of the sidewalk should be included as a general benefit, the same as the Bridge Street currently shows. Another concern is the parking lot. As you can see, the two parking lots provide over 190 parking spaces. And that's over 10,000 square foot sidewalks and 7,000 square foot of landscaping. So the parking will support the new park, new restaurant, the Legacy Trail, as well as supplemental parking for downtown Truckee. So put into perspective, the orange portion is the park, and the green is the landscape. The turquoise is the private property frontage, which is 15,000 square feet, and the town owns 11,000 square feet frontage. But the parking itself, it's again 10,000 square feet of sidewalk and 7,600 square foot of landscaping. So the two parking lots, it's really for general benefits. It should not be covered by property owners on West River Street. So for these reasons, please reevaluate. And at the end, I know the timing is up. This month is Gratitude Month, and I know this is lots of work, and I want to recognize and thanks all the staff, town staff, to work really hard and put this together, provide great public facilities and amenities for Truckee residents as well as visitors. Thank you.
Thank you for following up on our theme for the evening. Would anyone else like to make a comment on this proceeding? You can step right up.
Do I have to push a button? No, okay. I want to know a couple of things. You guys are talking about your park there. There's other properties on the other side of that we don't know anything about it. Okay, is it because there's a lot of frontage there and you guys are basing it on frontage of how many votes you get and you're not allowing those customers or those businesses to vote? I don't know. It just seems really weird that nobody on that side of the property knows anything about what's going on. So are we being backdoored? It's kind of not cool. Nobody has gotten anything about this. I found out by JD. Kind of not cool. So I think you should reevaluate it, take your money, go somewhere else. If you're not going to involve everybody into the program, when you guys are doing all this development and you're leaving everybody out. Well, a couple of people out that have a lot of frontage there. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
J.D. Haas, 10055 West River Street, and thank you, Dave, for your phone call the other day and your apology for your behavior on this matter. And as well, from the very beginning, this hasn't been a public servant. This has been more of a bullying position that I have felt from certain people within this, because I've been told it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, this is how it's going to be. And you made it clear to me today that this all happens behind closed doors, Anna. You already had this discussion with Dan behind closed doors. You already know what you want to know. We don't get to hear that. That's not okay. Secondly, at the park, isn't there two buildings going on each side of the park? The first part showed two buildings there, going to cap the park. Where's that money going? Where's it coming from? Third, why are we charging pennies for parking? This is horrible. And we don't even have a parking meter to go out there and check the parking meter. We don't even have anybody checking the parking. When they say, hey, where do we pay? I say, don't worry about paying because there's nobody here to check it. Sorry, Danny. But we don't have even a parking meter coming out, maybe once in a while. We've already dealt with domestic terrorism. I'm going to say it and say it again. We do not have the police to take care of all the people that are going to come through that Forest Service and getting dumped in our backyard. They're going to get dumped right across that bridge into our backyard, right there into our alley. I can tell you right now that there's crack pipes, and that's where a lot of the drug use is being used right now. What is this park going to be used for? Where are the people going to be? And what's going to happen to our quality of life? Big decision. Personally, I can handle all my own snow storage. I have, even in the biggest storms. I do not need to pay for snow storage, snow removal. I do it myself. I have my own parking. I paid for it. I paid a little bit extra at the end. It's a real bummer. You know, I bought a property. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I took it off the Airbnb market and I put in some employee housing. Exactly what I did. And I made it affordable so people could live here. And now you're going to tax me again and raise the cost of living. Isn't the idea to have places where people can live that can afford these places? That's what it's about. I know it's a nice word that you've developed these areas, but that's not the word. So the additional taxes, it's not okay with me. You have the ability to not do it and take it from the general fund. Should really think about what we're doing. And we can talk more about what this pressure is going to do. Our Truckee River is on the EPA polluted list. It is. What's this going to do? Nobody knows about that, huh? Nobody talks about that.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Would anyone else like to make a comment for this public hearing this evening? Okay, seeing none, I am going to close the public hearing on this agenda item. I would ask Dan if you'd like to respond to some of the questions raised in public comment.
Yeah, let me list the questions that I've got, and then if council members heard additional ones that I missed, if you could cue my memory or other staff, that'd be great. So one question was related to communication with the businesses, basically the Flyers. I believe it was related to the Flyers bulk plant facility and the Truckee Tire building. So that was a question I had on my list that I could respond to. There was a question related to the Mill Street sidewalk and why that was special benefit versus general benefit. There was a question that I had that was the rationale with the pedestrian facilities adjacent to the parking lots and why that was deemed special benefit as opposed to general benefit. I think there was some question regarding the intended use of the parking near Mill Street as to whether that was intended to serve the Legacy Trail as compared to serving the West River Street corridor. And that's what I had. Were there other questions that I missed?
Mayor, if I may. Dan, you're also welcome to share any details of our conversation, but I think mostly it was covered by the same questions that Councilmember Zabriskie asked.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to elaborate if you'd like.
Sure.
And maybe also just adding a little bit about the communication in the process as a whole, and how long you guys have been working on this might also be helpful.
Sure. So I'll start with that. So the project's been being worked on for about 6 years now. It was some preliminary engineering work was started on it. Things stalled out due to when COVID hit, and then also some budgetary constraints caused it to stall for a couple of years. And then now it's at a point where you as a council have budgeted construction dollars for the project. The goal is to put it into construction next summer. The scope of the project, again, would be to underground all of the utilities on West River Street, as well as to construct curb gutter sidewalk, improve the parking areas to make them more functional, and then basically do a remodel on West River Street similar to what the town did in Brickletown about 5 years ago now. as a part of that process, what we've done is developed a basically a communication list of all the property owners within the project area and property owners that have direct frontage on the areas being improved. And then we've had about a half a dozen general meetings open to the public that were specific to the project over the course of that 5 years. And then there's been probably 3 or 4 council meetings where the council has taken various actions to either hire design consultants or receive updates on the project and to advance this maintenance district. There was a meeting a couple of months ago. So in general, that's been the public communication strategy on this. So some general that's kind of town-wide, open to the general public, then a lot of specific communication with individual property owners to try to develop the project in a way that interfaces with their property as advantageously as possible. As it relates to the Truckee Tire and the Flyers buildings, we had communication early on in the project with those property owners. They made it pretty clear, and we expected it, that they were not interested in curb gutter sidewalk improvements along the frontage of that property because it would have significantly affected the operational characteristics of the property, just the way, the types of vehicles that access that property and the way that they access it. A curb gutter sidewalk along that frontage would make that property access very difficult. So we took that input. You know, the goal of this project is not to cause businesses to not function well, and we basically stopped the sidewalk project on the north side of the street to the east of the Truckee Tire building and the Flyers building, really out of as a result of the feedback that we received from those building owners. As it relates to the maintenance district, we're also not proposing that those buildings be included in the maintenance district. So the reason we have not had direct communication with those property owners regarding the maintenance district is that they would not be affected by the maintenance district because they're not included in the maintenance district. So that's the rationale there. As it relates to the parking, so it's what we're referring to here are the 2 orange areas on this map. So those are the pedestrian improvements that are designed to provide pedestrian connection from the parking lots to the south side of the street and provide safe ADA accessible path of travel between the parking and the businesses that it's intended to serve, which are basically the businesses on West River Street. You see there's 2 separate orange areas. The orange area to the right, which is the one adjacent to the Jack's parking lot, that's proposed to be constructed as a part of the project that we're working on. The orange area to the left, which is what we're referring to as the Mill Street parking lot, that is not included in the current project work scope. None of that parking lot is proposed to be constructed right now. The thinking was that that parking lot may be developed in the future as parking demand on West River Street increases as a way of serving the businesses on West River Street. So what the town did was to acquire easements on that land to effectively provide the land rights to build future parking should it be needed to support the businesses. But because that wouldn't be built right now, the maintenance of that area would not initially be assessed. So the assessments the maximum assessments that are being voted on tonight are the maximum amount that the assessments could ever be. So I think Joe had asked a question about, could this be an open-ended thing? It can't be. So the assessment amounts that are being voted on by the property owners tonight, that's the maximum that could be assessed. There is a provision for cost of living or CPI adjustments to effectively track inflation going forward. But the town, without going through another vote process, could not just arbitrarily set the assessments higher than the CPI adjustment would allow. The reason that these areas, so when the engineer who prepared the engineer's report was considering whether these areas should be special benefit versus general benefit. Two things. We've got a couple of other districts, Brickletown and the Rail Yard Maintenance District. The exact same circumstance exists. In those examples, they were determined to be special benefit, and they were basically funded on a pro rata basis by the property owners, who ultimately those parking lots were going to be serving. Also, the logic there is that it's providing that these parking lots, due to their proximity to the businesses on the south side of the street, are providing a public parking option to help meet the parking demands of the various businesses. So that was the rationale behind those areas being considered special benefit as opposed to general benefit. And then as it relates to the sidewalk on the Mill Street frontage, I think Xinyi was suggesting that the intent of that sidewalk was to provide the pedestrian connection between the Legacy Trail and the bridge that would cross the Truckee River and the parking area to the north. What I'll say is that the Mill Street parking lot, the intent of that is not and has not been to be trailhead parking for the Legacy Trail. It's been, the notion there is that would be created and managed in a way that would serve the businesses. And when I say managed in a way, if that's free, unrestricted parking, might residents of Truckee park there and access the Legacy Trail? Sure. I will point out that on the south side of the river, as part of the Legacy Trail project, there's trailhead parking that's being constructed that's intended to be the primary parking lot to serve the Legacy Trail. What we as staff would expect is that if that parking lot is being built to serve the businesses on West River Street, that may be managed as 2-hour parking. It could be managed as paid parking, which would tend to be a discouragement for folks who want to access the Legacy Trail to park there as opposed to parking in the Legacy Trail parking lot. So the intent of that parking lot is not as a remote parking for the Legacy Trail, but rather to serve West River. The other portion of the consideration here was that if you look on the west side of Mill Street, you see that dark blue sidewalk area that's very wide. And then you see kind of at the bottom of it, there's kind of a flat end. That's where the bridge would tie in. So the intended circulation pattern here is for the bridge to tie into the west side of the Mill Street corridor, to basically tie into the frontage of the property that the town owns, and then to develop that sidewalk and trail area as the main access corridor to and from the Legacy Trail and up to West River Street. So that's where we're attempting to push the pedestrian and the bicycle traffic. The section on Mill Street that Xinyi was referring to would not be constructed as a part of this project. The reason that was included in the possible maximum assessments is there was some recognition that redevelopment of that property may result in the need to build a sidewalk along Mill Street to provide, pedestrian access from the property up to Mill Street. If the property were to develop in a way that wasn't needed, that sidewalk wouldn't necessarily be constructed, and then the sidewalk assessments are based on the actual sidewalk that's constructed. So there's nothing about the town project that would cause that assessment to go into place on Mill Street, because we wouldn't build the sidewalk, and then it's questionable as to whether redevelopment of that project would result in that sidewalk being constructed or not. What I can say is that we wouldn't be requiring that sidewalk to be built as the pedestrian corridor to and from the Legacy Trail, because we will have already established that on the other side of the street. So that was the reason that the engineer looked at that as a special benefit as opposed to a general benefit. And I think I covered all the questions that I had written down. If there's other questions that the council members or other staff members captured, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that. I think some good questions were raised, and appreciate you responding to them. So I've already closed the public hearing, so I can't reopen it.
You didn't address the buildings in the park, the commercial buildings on public land.
So,
Go ahead, Jen.
yeah, the public comment section is closed, so we don't reopen that. Dan, can you address the buildings in the park, please?
Yeah, so I think what's being referred to is where the dark blue area is showing up on this exhibit. It's kind of forming a rectangular kind of area to the south of it and to the west of it. On the right side of that, or the east side, there's approximately 10,000 square feet of land that the town is considering selling to a commercial property developer to develop a building on that property. Similarly, on the east side of the property, there's about 5,000 square feet of land that the town is contemplating selling to a different commercial developer. So I believe one of the questions was what would happen with the revenue from that sale. And ultimately, that would be up to the council. So whether the council chose to take that revenue and invest it into the park, which is going to be about a $4 million construction cost, or whether the council invested that in a housing program or some other activity, ultimately that would be the council's discretion. As it relates to how that would affect assessments, if we were to parcelize that property into 3 pieces of land, the property owner of whatever the new pieces of land are would be responsible for assuming the assessment that's generated by the sidewalk frontage that would be adjacent to that parcel. So in the instance of the parcel that would be furthest to the west or on the right of this exhibit, that property owner would be assuming the assessment for both the Mill Street frontage as well as the West River Street frontage. Similarly, on the other side, the property owner would be assuming the assessment for the frontage on the the western side of the property. So that's how that would work.
Thank you, Dan, for responding to that. I do want to circle back with my fellow council members, just based on public comment, if there are any other questions that you have before we move to the vote. I saw a yes over here. Go ahead, Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, just 2 quick ones. Thanks, Mayor Henderson. Dan, can you talk a little bit, just so that there's clarity both for the public and for us, as to the reason that we're moving this forward is obviously for the streetscape project that we've talked about, that's been designed, et cetera. What would there be a process should some of those property owners from the district on the north side of West River Street, from the district boundary on the western end, continuing west? Would there, how would there be an opportunity to add streetscape improvements, not obviously as part of phase 1, but potentially as we move towards phase 2, with the parking, the Mill Street parking, and some of those other improvements that you just talked about? What would the process be like? Because I don't know, I've been a part of a few of these formation districts, and they've sort of been a lot more all-encompassing with like really neat lines that have really nice borders on them, specifically Jaboom and the rail yard, and this one, does take a lot of cuts. So can you just maybe speak to that and what that might look like?
Yeah, I believe what would have to happen is we'd need to go through an identical process to what we're currently going through. We would need to redraw the boundary to then include those properties, and then we would need to put the whole district out to a vote. So we'd have to re-vote on the whole thing.
Great. And then also, I think it's important to continue to clarify that phased approach and the maximum. The maximum assessment is truly a maximum assessment, right? So when we're talking about that $2,300, et cetera, at what point in terms of years, length of time, would you imagine we get to that maximum assessment and sort of, based on budgeting, based on that phase 1 construction, where in that assessment range do you estimate will be maybe in year, 5 from now, since we're not even really going to be starting construction or we're not going to finish construction for at least 3 more years. Yeah.
Yeah. It will depend on the rate. It'll depend on the timing of the Mill Street parking lot, I think, because the bulk of the infrastructure that's proposed would be constructed as a part of the West River Street project. The cost estimates are based on pretty good information that we have in some of the other districts that we have. So I would expect in the early years, we would probably be close in the 80 to 85% of maximum assessment amounts. And then once the Mill Street parking lot comes online, it would probably kick up closer to the 100% level. The rail yard maintenance district, because one of the, I guess, comments that we get is, well, whatever the maximum is what you're going to work to, because you're government and you're going to get as much money as possible. I've heard that comment before. The rail yard maintenance district, we're assessing that at about 25% of what the maximum assessments could be, because the actual amount of money that's needed to do the maintenance out there is less than what the maximum assessment amounts are. So what I would expect would happen is in the early years, we would probably be closer to the maximum assessments. If we are generating a significant reserve in the CFD account or in the Special Assessment District account, such that we're comfortable that we could lower the assessments, then that's something we've done in practice already in other districts where that circumstance has come up.
And the assessments won't begin until the project is certified complete, or phase 1, right? Because the construction costs are included in maintenance. For example, if we go through 2 construction seasons, what happens in between season 1 and 2, for example?
Yeah, so great question. So we had a similar situation in Brickletown where some of the improvements were constructed in year 1 and some of them were constructed in year 2. We did a phased-in approach there where we looked at the amount of money we thought was going to be necessary to basically maintain the first phase of construction. So we set assessments at a discounted rate, and then we went to the maximum assessment the next year. So.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification, and also hope that helps answer some questions for the public too. So thank you.
Yeah, those were great questions. Any other questions? No.
He took all mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
On this side? No. Yep.
I just want to make sure I understand. On the Mill Street parking lot, if a sidewalk is later added, the additional maintenance costs could not be recouped through this assessment district?
It would be.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah. It's just because the sidewalk wouldn't be built as part of the first phase of construction, we wouldn't realize that maintenance cost, and as a result, the assessments would be set a bit lower because the total maintenance in the district would be less than it would be if that sidewalk were constructed.
Okay. And then everything to the west of the Mill Street parking lot is outside of the assessment district?
Correct.
So they don't pay any assessment?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
And in response to one of the questions from earlier from somebody who I think owns property to the west, the way the assessment law works, only the people who have to pay the assessment are allowed to vote on the assessment. We're not actually permitted to let anybody vote if they're not paying.
Thank you, Andy, for that clarification. Okay, so I think we've gotten through questions, and of course we did our public hearing. So what happens now, I'm going to stop the proceedings on this. If there is any property owner here tonight that still needs to submit their vote, you can hand it to Judy Price, our town clerk, in the back. And Judy, I will ask that you go tally the votes. I believe you're going to do that in the back room. Any member from the public is welcome to join Judy back there if you would like to watch her tally the votes, as it is part of the public proceeding. And we are going to move to agenda item 7.2 while the vote tallying takes place, because that's going to take a few minutes. And then when Judy comes back, we will continue item 7.1. So with that, Judy, I think you have a few folks who might follow you back, so just make sure they know where you're headed to. Thank you for that. And we are going to move into item 7.2, consideration of an ordinance amending Title 15 of the Municipal Code for the purpose of adopting the updated California Building Code of Regulations. Mike, I believe you are going to give us a presentation this evening.
Good job, Jessica.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Town Council. I don't have a presentation. What I did do is I provided 4 minor slides that will help answer or help follow along with what should be a fairly simplistic process. If you can give me just a few minutes so I can get this put up.
Of course.
Okay. First of all, Council, I'm honored to be here. This is my first adoption and introduction process with the town of Truckee and the council here, so kind of exciting for me. If I'm a little out of format, do forgive me. I should be able to cover the bullet points on what we're looking to try to achieve here this evening. I'm also going to provide, I think in the last month, I've had some inquiries, especially getting together with our stakeholders, with CAT and the town of Truckee's Engineering Association, and typically when I provide any introductions, I want to give a background. I want to make sure that we're clear at understanding exactly what the process is to get to where we are at now and why we are at where we're at now. So let me go ahead and begin with the discussion is related and with respect to a updated version of the California Building Code of Regulations. These updated versions consist of the 2022 California Building Code, Volume 1 and 2, California Residential Code, Plumbing, Mechanical, Electrical, Green Building, and Energy, to just list a few. I also want to outline that there are a few additional texts that I have adopted or are looking to adopt on this code cycle. They would consist of the 2021 International Solar Energy Provisions and the 2021 International Swimming Pool and Hot Tub Code. Lastly, an additional set of codes for our code compliance staff would entail the 1997 Code Abatement Dangerous Building, 1997 Uniform Housing, and the 2018 International Property Codes. These codes will help our code compliance staff provide tools for them when we get into issues where we have to enforce the code compliance. As a background to this, and I want to kind of jump into this process right here, is to understand how this goes. It is usually a very simplistic process. Every 3 years, the state, who usually runs annual updates to the code, will receive amended versions from the governing body, the International Code Council, better known as ICC. ICC will usually take their volumes, their versions of the codes, along with the Uniform Plumbing, Uniform Mechanical, and the National Electric Code. These codes are usually dissected to understand exactly what we need to change from the prior 3 years, meaning it may be a simplistic language change. We may have learned from that past 3 years, and most importantly, any kind of disastrous events that take place, not to include energy standards that are becoming a more intriguing and hot item within the building industry, we'll say. Once the International Code Conference is finished with this, they usually will notify the states and it would be the state's responsibility as to whether they would like to adopt the codes as a whole in their entirety, or whether they would like to grab the codes, comb through them, and modify them for each state. When we say that is we are going to look at just the state of California and the anomalies we deal with, just to put a few out there. My travels down in Southern California were really based on two conditions, seismic and geotechnical. Although there are mountain communities down there, there was a little bit more of a focus. Here in the town of Truckee, we look at a lot more than just that. We have snow loads, we have wind loads. Because of our proximity to seismic events, San Francisco, we don't ignore that as well. When the state has completed their publications, which is usually then the following year, they will notify ICC and the Building Standard Commission, and notifies the local jurisdictions or the building officials. These codes are and have been published and are ready for purchase. Once we get that, which is usually around, we'll say anywhere between late July to early September, my job as a building official is to comb through those codes, verify if there's any significant changes that will impact us, and at that point, if there's modifications that need to be made, to go through a formal process. It's at that point that, and this is a point that is very important, and I found that was very misunderstood. When these codes are published, the state makes it very clear that these codes will and shall be implemented immediately at the turn of the year. We are now at where we are right now, where if the local jurisdiction wants to provide any additional changes or modifications based on topographic, geographic, or climatic cause, we need to go through a formal process. That process is first starting out with the introduction process to understand and recognize what we will be dealing with for the next 3 years. Once that process is finished, we will be moving into setting a hearing date and formalizing that conditions. Is there any questions from council in regards to this process? Very well. Well, we'll keep it very short and very simple then. I'm going to move right into staff's recommendations. I noticed that I haven't been moving the slides, but you can see that I'm outlining the conditions here. Truly a good gift to gab. And obviously, what we just talked about, the ordinance, the recommendations, and the adoption, you can see here. So again, this is a very routine process for most jurisdictions in most states, especially in my travels up and down. With that being said, I would like to move into staff's recommendations and actions, and I want to make sure that I put this up so everybody can read it. It is to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance 2022-07, set a public hearing for December 13th, 2022, to consider the second reading and adopt the ordinance, and direct town clerk to publish the necessary public notices.
Thank you very much, Mike, and congratulations on your first one.
Thank you, Mayor.
With that, do I have any council questions? Anyone on this side? Any questions on this side of the dais? Council members Zabriskie, any questions?
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to make sure in response to my written question about seeing the changes to the various sections concerning that were in 15.03, 0.030 through 0.050. You're saying there aren't any changes there. It's in the administrative provision that relates to them?
Councilman, first and most important is being new in a jurisdiction. I try not to make a number of changes. I don't know the jurisdiction. What I did notice is from the last adoption of 2019 to now was the recommendation that helped clarify what I put in there. The prior adoption introduction process indicated to adopt the building code and chapter 1, which is very similar to what I'm doing now. I'm just putting the language there. That language is a historical change that most building officials have made historically up and down our state. To explain this a little better is that if you can imagine having 12 volumes of building codes all having a various version of the administrative code, when you read through these, there's always language that clarifies that if there's ever a more restrictive or an alteration between the codes, the more restrictive applies. My methodology is to look at how I can simplify it, not only for the design professionals that we deal with, but also for the general public. Why would they and should they be in a position to have to try to make the interpretation as what is more restrictive? With this being said, if we take all the other codes and delete them, apply the Chapter 1, Division 2 out of the California Building Code with our ongoing changes that we've made, it helps simplify and clarify exactly from an administration standpoint what we need to do.
So there is no change in 15.03.030?
No, sir. Everything that is applied from the prior adoption is still in place for this introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Seeing no other council questions, I will open public comment for this agenda item. Would any of our last remaining members of the public like to make a public comment on this? Seeing none, I will close public comment and move into council deliberation or entertain a motion. Over to this side. Councilmember Pallavi. You looked directly at me. You made eye contact.
I don't have any further deliberation. I'm ready to move, but if somebody else wants to chime in, please do so.
I just want to commend you for a very well-written staff report on a very technical issue, both on process details as well as the various codes that we follow and the new codes that were adopted. So I just really want to thank you very much for a job very well done.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and motion.
I move we introduce and waive the first reading of ordinance 2022-07 and set public, no, we did that, to consider second reading and adoption of the ordinance and direct town clerk to publish the necessary public notices.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 7.2 passes unanimously. Mike, thank you so much.
Your honorable member, members of the town council, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay. With that, we are going to move to 7.3 because our votes for 7.1, I don't think they've come back yet. So we're going to move to 7.3, Town Council Priorities and Work Plan Quarterly Update for the period ending September 30th, 2022. Great. Jen, take it away.
Great, thank you. You are very familiar with this process at this point, so I'm not going to linger too long on some of the background and summary information. Again, these are your council priorities to work on workforce housing, sustainability and climate initiatives, communication and community cohesion, infrastructure investment, including the library, bike trails, and transit alternatives, and enhance partnerships and investments for emergency preparedness and wildfire readiness and mitigation. We have a number of items that we did complete this quarter. Again, as a reminder, this is the quarter of July, August, and September of 2022. We have deployed our Bike at Work program, where we're using the e-bikes that we have that'll launch this spring for the community. We had a few of them on hand and have offered them to employees to use, weather permitting. And then the next item was actually a new item added to the work plan in response to SB 1383, where we did some outreach to our top generators to make sure they had a compliance plan. We've completed FEMA training for our employees. Our annual paving and drainage project is complete, along with regional partnerships, for example, with the National Forest Service and working on trails for recreational use as well as wildfire mitigation and thinking about shaded fuel breaks. We are moving along nicely with the JPA consideration. You have approved that memo that was discussed during the last council meeting, as well as the polling, initiation of the polling to understand community interest and support. In the visitor center transit plan is moving along nicely and almost complete. With communications and community outreach, with the hiring of our DEI program, we are revisiting our DEI program manager. I apologize. Revisiting a lot of those work items. We had put a lot of those on hold as it aligns really nicely and collaborates with our communications program manager. So we have expanded our translation services to the point where we think we need to be right now. We'll reevaluate that once we have a better understanding of community interest and need and types of communication. We did host the big truck day out at the Corp Yard, and we've completed a lot of GIS work with our GIS analyst. Another substantially complete project is new. That is our Truckee Community Project. That is through the police department, offering some diversion tools locally here in Truckee, and that's a pilot that Nevada County has offered to our community. There's a number of work items in progress that have made significant progress this quarter. Our DAI action plan is well underway. Our bike safety campaign is underway. That's a new item as well. Donner Lake educational art installation and some radio grant and equipment infrastructure needs in our police department. New items, the Tier 1 outreach for our food waste generators, the bike safety campaign, that's a collaboration with the Tahoe Fund where we are working with them and helping to fund a bike safety campaign to come out in the spring. The community project I just mentioned and the art installation at Donner Lake, the council approved that a couple months ago, and some information for our EOC section in terms of infrastructure updates and radio upgrades. There are 3 new items in the bike rack, the bike and trail safety. That's been a popular conversation in the community lately. Our youth council with our DEI efforts and plastic water bottle ban, which you just discussed last council meeting. So to touch base a little bit on these quickly, plastic water bottle ban, we've proposed a process, timeline, and work plan implications in our staff report. So we'd ask for some council direction if you're in support of what we've outlined or not. The key highlights are 1 stakeholder group, 1 community workshop, 2 surveys. Staff will do outreach to other jurisdictions such as South Lake Tahoe to understand some of their research and lessons learned through their process. We did hear that the council was interested in maybe less of a timeline as compared to the single-use process. I think we were about 6 months of meetings, a year-ish from when we initiated that this last time around. So we're proposing to come back with a discussion item in March. That's where you would provide us with direction if we need to do further research or come back with an ordinance or an amendment to the ordinance. And then following up with adoption, there'll be a significant amount of outreach. At least that's what we're anticipating at this point. So we would put on hold the sustainability requirements for special events. That's in the work plan, as well as sustainability grants and rebate programs. I just want to be clear on that's our proposal. If council wishes to see something different or discuss something different, to please provide that direction tonight. Our DEI update, our DEI manager was hired in October, so just about a month. We all know Erica. She's been with the town for a while, but a new role for her, and she's jumped right in. She's meeting with town leadership and our key partners, including our council members and our community partners, to gather information that's going to drive her action plan. And those are the steps she'll plan to take and the organization will take in the next year or so that really will move forward our DEI efforts. She's also working really closely with Brown, our communications program manager. They're working on a community survey to gather some input from the community that we hope to get out soon and make that announcement when that's available. Very actively engaged in our winter microtransit project. We're really excited that that service has expanded down all of West River Street to encompass Donner Creek Mobile Home Park. We are also able to expand it even after approval without additional costs to Coachland and the multifamily developments out on 89, I'm bad with streets, Hopkins and Frischman. So all of our multifamily affordable housing complexes will be covered by that service. Erica's also engaged with Nevada County for the Veterans Hiring Program and the consideration of a youth council, which would require engagement with the school and see what their support level is, if we can coordinate that with them or have to go in a different direction to get that established. And then lastly, one of our very popular topics, bike and trail safety. So we do have a new item in the work plan that I mentioned. We're working on a safety campaign with about 20 different partners in the region to have some consistency. We're in the process of reviewing the current ordinance to see if we can provide some clarifying language in the interim. So our recommendation is to put this in the bike rack, keep it there, and have a discussion with the council at the council retreat in terms of prioritization. It is worth noting that there were a handful of other significant items that required a significant amount of staff time, and they were not in our work plans. So just wanted to point those out. Measure V, engagement through the CEO roundtable, negotiating the MOU, and a lot of community conversation about that. Our compensation and classification study and opening up negotiations early has been a significant workload effort throughout the organization. We are short-staffed in many of our departments. About 20% of our FTEs are filled or are vacant at this point. And then our general plan update, even though it does not show in the highlights of significant progress complete, all of you know that you've participated in a lot of public meetings, especially this past summer, over 50 in total since the start of this process. So that has also taken up a significant amount of resource capacity. So with that, we'd ask for direction on any of the bike rack items and ask you to receive the quarterly report.
Thank you, Jen. Let me check in over on this side. Any council questions on Jen's presentation?
I do have a couple. So Jen, I noticed in the spreadsheet that there's still the Blue Zone community process. Is there an update on that?
I did check in with the hospital. If you remember, that's our partner on this project. We're going to revisit that after the holiday season. There was some concern about just wanting to check in with the economy and where we were with that in terms of gauging community capacity to have that conversation.
Okay. And then the trail striping on the list was crossed out, but then there's the new item, the item 2.3, develop the bike safety plan. Is that what it got transitioned to?
I think where our intention would be to incorporate a lot of the bike and trail safety into Bike and Trails Master Plan.
So including any of these additional safety aspects that were identified in that report like the striped buffer and the bike box and things like that.
Correct.
Those will all be incorporated in the safety plan.
Yes, and something that we can discuss at the retreat in terms of prioritizations.
Okay. Great, thank you. And then, so one last thing. Erica's going to be meeting with us to talk about kind of her planning, similar to what Braun did and her focus areas.
Correct. We have one council meeting scheduled so far, but we'll be reaching out to 4 of you to get that scheduled.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Zabriskie.
Right, there's, I can ask for elaboration on some of these items in a side conversation just to understand them further, but there's a few of these in here that where we've had a lot of public comment in the past, so I wanted to ask about them in a public setting. And one is the West River Street site development. It's on page 5 of 10. Initial design complete. Design consultants working to update the scope of work and schedule. Can you just briefly describe what that redevelopment is?
Sure. I'm going to ask Dan or Hillary to jump in. They've been engaged in a lot of the conversations that have happened.
Sure. So that's the West River Street Park project.
Okay.
And we met with the consultant a few weeks ago, requested that they give us a work scope to finalize the construction plans for that project with a target construction date of summer 2024. So that's the status of it.
Okay. And then the next thing, that Council Member Klofstad just asked about the bike striping and bike safety program, and one of the items here is develop and implement a bike safety campaign. Can you address how this fits in with many of the comments we've received about the need for improved bike safety?
Sure. Sure, and why don't, Becky, if you don't mind, do you want to give a little update? Becky's our staff representative that's leading the project on the town's part, the work that they've done so far. It's really a regional campaign effort, so we have some commonality amongst the region with signage and information.
Okay. And Becky, I'm asking this in the context of multiple comments we've gotten, which includes e-bikes, legacy trails, street safety. And it's pretty much the question is, how is the town addressing bike safety at this time?
So yeah, I think it's a big subject with a lot of issues, and so I think we've just sort of recognized that we need to sort of come together. And I think this group, so we're working with Take Care folks, going to get a bunch of partners together, talk about mostly a messaging campaign about how to share the trail, making sure people understand the rules of the trails, whether or not, we might discuss things like, do we need to be more specific about what side of the trail you should be on, but also just in general, just letting people know, get like a safety message out there as sort of a first step to improve safety. And then I think so that's sort of like this initial piece. I think after that, through, like Jen had said, the more the infrastructure safety issues would be something that we would probably address more in a update to our Trails and Bikeways master plan. But there's probably somewhere in between the adoption of that plan and these initial discussions with these partners where we might see, like with the buffered bike lanes, we saw an opportunity there and took it to create those buffer bike lanes on Glenshire and on Northwood. So this is like a first step, I guess I would say.
Okay. Is the bike safety also being addressed through the local road safety program that we heard about a few months ago?
The bike safety is part of that as well. So there's some countermeasures that are identified as potential, like the green bike boxes at signalized intersections and things like that. I think a lot of it just comes down to prioritization at this point and funding.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is bike safety is being addressed through the Take Care program.
More of an educational component.
Okay, and then the master plan in terms of amending the master trails and bikeway plan, and then the local road safety plan.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I would just add and remind the council that the campaign that we're discussing in the work with the Tahoe Fund, that just came through us throughout the quarter. So we stepped up to participate and are actually funding some of the consulting work for that group.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question concerns the plastic bottle ban, and I'm seeing where it's a bigger effort than we might have at first wished, and you're talking about making trade-offs in terms of other projects we're addressing through Keep Truckee Green, and the council needing to eventually make a choice between what we pursue. Can you give me any kind of preview of the pros and cons of the items you described here? One was the work plan. Sustainability requirements for, sustainability requirements for special events, and then the additional business sustainability grant rebate programs. Can you just briefly identify those so I can start thinking about how I would try to balance the importance of these three things: bottle ban, the sustainability requirements for special events, and additional business sustainability grants?
Sure, I can briefly address that. The bottle ban concept, it depends on what direction the stakeholders as well as council would ultimately direct staff to go, but that could include the use of single-use plastic water bottles in town facilities. It could address single-use water bottles at permitted events in town, and it could also include vending or sale of single-use water bottles at retail or restaurants throughout town. Those are sort of different areas that are often explored in that type of an ordinance. The special events policy item, that is an item to explore adding additional sustainability requirements to permitted special events. We have about 30 permitted special events per year in Truckee, so not a huge number of events, but that includes things like the Barracuda Golf Tournament and Truckee Thursday. So our single-use foodware ordinance that Council just adopted tonight does not affect special events. So that would be one policy area that we could look at, is opportunities for requiring single-use foodware to be reusable, or foodware to be reusable at special events. And then lastly, the incentive and grant programs for businesses. Right now we have incentive programs for energy efficiency retrofits for residential. We do not have such programs for businesses, so it would be sort of expanding what we've already put in place for residential for some of our businesses.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. Any questions on this side of the dais? No from Vice Mayor Romack?
Just comments. When
Okay.
you're ready.
Well, I am going to ask everyone to hold their comments. I am actually, because we have public in the room for 7.1, I am going to pause 7.3 so that we can finish 7.1. We will then come back. I will open public comment for 7.3, and we will move into deliberation and comments on 7.3. So with that, I do want us to be able to return to 7.1. Judy, let's see. Do you have some results that you are ready to share with us? And I believe you'll be presenting two separate tallies, one with all of the property owners, which does include the town, and then one with all of the property owners excluding the town.
Correct. And I will let you know that as we opened each envelope, we did read out loud the dollar value related to each one of the votes, because it's a vote per dollar. So the votes with, including the town of Truckee, were $48,565.11 yes, $10,276.60 no. It is a majority of 82.54% in support of the landscape and lighting district. The tally without the town is $17,925.40 in yes, $10,276.66 no. So it has a majority of 63.56% yes without the town.
Okay, Judy, thank you so much for that. I just want to make sure, because I was jotting it down as you were saying it. So without the town, it was 17,925 yes, 10,276 no, for a majority of 63.56%. Do I have that right? And then with the town, it was 48,500 yes, 10,276 no, for a majority of 82.54%, correct? Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So we have the votes related to this special assessment district, and now I will open it up for deliberation from council. Any other comments that you want to provide on 7.1? I will start with Vice Mayor Romack.
Sure. First up, thank you to members of the public for coming today and being involved in the process. Appreciate that. Thank you to staff for, talking with members of the public over the past, it sounds like 6 years, and working through this process. And thank you, Judy, for counting the votes. I think, this is an important project for the town of Truckee, and hearing that 63% of assessed property owners and businesses are in support of it outside of including the town, I would support moving forward with staff's recommendation to set up the resolution and to move forward with the project.
Can I pose a question?
Of course.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Mayor, both of you. Judy, what percentage of the votes, what percentage of the total possible votes is represented by the
I don't have that detail. I can get it for you in a couple of minutes, but I don't have it right off the top of my head.
approximate?
So Jessica has, I believe, the total special assessment
Yeah.
possible votes was 73,000
Okay.
and a little bit.
That included ours as well, but the property owners was 42,000.
Mike.
Sorry, the total for the property owners without the town was 43,268.
Okay, I think you heard Dan was about 60, was it 90,000?
So
a few people did not
including the town, there's 73,907.
Oh. 73,907.
That includes the town. Absent the town, it's 43,268.
And so the vote was around 58,000.
Yes, 58,841.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
Good question. Councilmember Pallavi, I'm going to return to this side of the dais.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything too noteworthy to add. I mean, I think it was important. I think that we purposely asked for the vote to be held that way, and I want to be clear, this didn't want to feel like a like the town was shoving something down anybody's unchosen route. And so I do think this is the way to go. I think it's a fair way to go. I also appreciate that the town is going to be funding a significant portion of these maintenance costs outside of the benefit and including the benefit. And really, this segment of our community is one of, we have maybe 3 or 4 CIP projects in our downtown core, but I would argue that I think West River and then, the new Jaboom intersection that's now causing problems, but, those are kind of the 2 key intersections, on our priority list that we've been working on for the past 4 years from a budgetary perspective and longer from a planning perspective. So I'm happy to see these results. And I appreciate everybody who voted and who's shown up and who's been a part of the process to what's hopefully going to be a really much improved corridor and infrastructure opportunity for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pallavi. Councilmember Zabriskie, would you like to provide any comments?
I agree with Councilmember Pallavi. He pointed out in an earlier meeting that the construction costs of the town's covering, is around 30 million, I think. So
Dan corrected me. It's not quite, it's 30 million if we count everything we're possibly going to do down there. This particular single phase 1 project is more in the $10 to $15 million time frame. But I wanted to be very clear. I've been corrected on that a couple of times. So let's get it right on the record.
Yeah. So basically, we've been looking at this for a number of years. I think the staff's report was very thorough and comprehensive. I have a good sense of the written comments that came in. I listened carefully to the verbal comments, and I appreciate everyone's contribution.
Thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. Councilmember Klivstad.
Thank you. I too took this very seriously and had a few exchanges with the public comments that came in earlier, which generated several questions for me. And I'm grateful to staff for spending the extra time with me. We were on the phone for about 45 minutes, and I'm more than happy to share any of that discovery with anybody that would like to reach out to me. I am very detail-oriented about these types of things in construction and didn't feel that we needed to take the public time to go through that, but I am very willing to spend the time with any individual that's interested. Some of the exchanges I had, though, I will daylight a little bit. One of the things that I did share with one of the commentaries was, at the school district, we often had people come in and say, I don't have any kids, so why should I have to pay this developer fee. And we would explain that even though you don't have kids, that home could still be used in the future for students. And I look at this the same. There were some people that were saying, we don't use that parking for the occupants of my building. And it's true, maybe you don't now, but that doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. The other thing that I discussed with a few people was the importance of equity. And I feel very strongly about this. I understand that in some cases it doesn't feel equal to you, but in the cases of the overall approach that we're taking with all the special assessment districts, there is equity. And if we were to change some of that now, I feel like we would have to go back and be more equitable with the rest of the community and how we've assessed those, conducted those assessment districts. So I feel this is fair and equitable. And I'm really excited about these improvements coming to our community and look forward to the process that is before us in bidding and hopefully awarding this project and getting it under construction. So I'm in full support.
Thank you, Councilmember Klosted. Well, I think my fellow council members have all made really, really great points. I'll just keep it very short. I think this has been a really complicated process. I know that not everyone supports it, nor does everyone oppose it. And ultimately, I feel like we need to let the vote stand, just like we will have to after voting closes shortly this evening. Nearly 2/3 of impacted property owners did vote yes to this, and so I feel like we have an obligation to uphold that. To your point, this is consistent with how we have formed other special assessment districts going back many, many years in many prior councils. So ultimately, I support moving forward, recognizing that my stance on this will upset certain people, and that certainly is not my intention. That said, I don't have any other comments to make, and so I think we are at the point where a motion makes sense. Would anyone like to make the motion for this tonight? Don't make me call on you.
Felt like Yana opened his mic.
Councilmember Zabriskie.
I move we adopt the resolution declaring the results, direct staff to record the notice of special tax lien, and introduce resolution 2022-68, directing staff to advertise the project for construction bids.
Yeah, because this is not an ordinance, this is just approve.
Yeah, that was our error where we said introduce. We should have said approve up there.
Approve. Okay.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So 7.1 passes unanimously, and we will move back to 7.3. We went through council questions on the work plan update, so I am going to move us right into opening public comment on 7.3. Would anyone like to make a public comment on the work plan update within 7.3 tonight? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we can move immediately into deliberation and discussion. And Jen, would you mind pulling up your slide? I know you had a few items that you specifically wanted us to provide some feedback on. Thank you for that. Okay. So I think we noted bike and trail safety was an addition this past quarter, which I think is a very good addition, and that staff's recommendation is to do a deeper dive on that during our council priority setting session in early 2023. Correct, Jen?
Correct.
Okay. And the Youth Council is part of Erica's efforts as within her DEI space. So we're not providing any feedback on that this evening. In particular, I mean, I suppose we could, but the area that you really want feedback is the plastic water bottle ban?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, because I know this one is near and dear to your heart, Councilmember Klosted, and because we had the pleasure of serving on the committee together for single use, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. So my understanding is, and just affirm, please, Jen, is that the pause on the two items for the special events and businesses those would be paused until the plastic water bottle ban was achieved, and we're targeting March. So it's a 4, 5, 6 month pause, correct?
Correct. And just to be perfectly clear, March would be the first time we come back to council for discussion and direction, and then we go back and do the amendments.
Yeah.
To clarify that, what I believe we proposed in the work plan is we would pause until we completed implementation of the water bottle ban. So that would be probably late 2023.
Ah, okay, that's
A significant portion of the workload associated with this is not just the ordinance development, but it's the outreach and implementation with the affected businesses.
okay. So sorry for going back to questions, but I'm going to have another question. So based on that, and based on the staff report that you gave me on how many staff you have, how many you're missing, you're trying to fill 2 positions for sustainability, one being a civic spark and one being a sustainability manager. Can you tell us where you are with those, hiring those?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify as well that there could be an option to bring on a consultant to help with some of the outreach. We just don't know that yet, right? So it's a little hard to give you a full answer. We are in second interviews for the sustainability program manager with the 2 final candidates. And then for the Civic Sparks Fellows for both housing and sustainability, we made several offers. We did not have any successful acceptance, so we will not have Civic Sparks Fellows this year.
Okay, for the whole year, because it's a timing issue.
Correct.
That is disappointing. Okay. All right. I still feel that the overall benefit and impact of this ban, especially partnering it with our sister agency in South Lake Tahoe, is worth the investment. I think if we had previously given staff direction, and I would continue to support that if there is the opportunity to hire a consultant to support this effort, I would encourage us to do so. We do have funding in our sustainability budget, and I would really love to spend it on something as beneficial as this.
Thank you, Councilmember Klofstad. Let me flip over to this side. Councilmember Pallavi.
Are we talking about just this thing, or do you want all of my comments?
You can, all of your comments, sir.
All of my comments. Maybe I'll keep that one to the end because that one has more discussion involved. But I wanted to bring up a couple other quick things. One, I do support the short-term goal of updating the Trails and Bikeways master plan, and hopefully that will be on the work plan in 2023. And I do wholeheartedly support wrapping all of the safety and all of that into one project. I personally think that would be the most efficient way, and it allows us the opportunity to have multiple types of conversations with our community, not just about trails and bikeways, but about how they're being used, and allow that to inform a much broader assessment of our plan. So I do support that. I wanted to highlight and potentially add a bike rack edition. We received quite a unique letter and public comment for this meeting from, I believe it was just from a community member. I actually didn't recognize the name, regarding some duplicities or administrative duplicities and opportunities to start to look at some of our special district overlays and understand where economies of scale might take place. So I would support, if the rest of you, or at least 2 others of you agree, in a bike rack edition that explores feasibility of starting conversations with Park and Rec District and understanding what that would even mean before we take that off. And I would suggest that moves into the bike rack, mostly as a placeholder, so that it's clear that we want to speak about that at our retreat. Thank you. I've come from too many conferences. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know where my brain is. The other thing, and so kind of cruising into the plastic water bottle ban, I'm going to kick that off with a question and just ask staff, are there any other, do we have any other committees, public processes? I know the polling is the library polling, but that's not that we're not doing that as a council thing, because that's really like the Friends of the Library is sort of the committee that's gonna be the sounding board for that one, not necessarily us. So like, what other public processes are we expecting in the next 3 to 5 months that will also be taking both attention from the public side and ours?
We still have our Reach Code Committee going on. That's winding down, but that is still in process. I think it's a bit unclear if we'd ask for a council representative on the library polling committee at this point. We do intend to convene a group, so there may be one council representative on that. We have our micro transit or transit committee that is still working, and that is Vice Mayor Romack and Councilmember Zabriski on that as we continue to explore transit and mobility pattern changes that may expand into something different and perhaps have different council representation. Hillary, am I missing anything else in your group of? I think that's it in the short term.
Okay. Thank you. That was super helpful. So, you know, I think I want to be very clear. I do support the plastic water bottle ban in whatever form it ends up taking. I've made very clear that I personally believe little bits of behavioral change that we can affect in the right direction is something that I do think we should be doing up here. With that being said, and based on both staff capacity and sort of momentum, I'm a bit hesitant to sort of like cut and switch right now. I feel like you guys have put in a lot of pretty solid work into what's already taken place. So I would prefer to let staff work through their priority lists for the next few months and bring this back when we have some more time to look at how it would interact with some of our other processes, with some of our other committees at the retreat, and have a more robust timing and implementation discussion of this process at that time. So I would support leaving it in the bike rack for now and bringing it back when we get together in January and February. And I think that was all of my comments, so thank you. And really great job, and I do think the 4 bullets you actually put up there, being Measure V and comp and class and all that other stuff that doesn't show up in the work plan, it doesn't show up in our priorities, took an absolute a million hours amount of your time. So I do appreciate the fact that you guys are able to accomplish so much and be distracted by also so much, so thank you.
Vice Mayor Romack.
Thank you. Yes, first up, is my mic on? There we go. Staff, thank you for all the work you're doing. I know you all work really, really hard, and so I appreciate you putting this all together to give us just a little glimpse of that. I will start off. I was actually, going to bring up the letter we received regarding the Park and Rec District. I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. Staffing challenges were brought up. I know they're hiring for lots of roles at the Park and Rec District, and while a lifeguard and a planner don't fit the same bill, you know, there's HR and finance and a lot of other opportunities that maybe now's a good time to be having these conversations. So I definitely support putting it in the bike rack and then discussing it further at our retreat. I think that's a great idea. As for the plastic water bottle ban, I'm supportive of moving it forward now, if there's support, or having a broader conversation. One thing I think I would like to see added to this is we did receive, questions after our single-use foodware ordinance from the California Grocers Association saying that they think the way the ordinance is read, would they have to charge fees on items like cereal boxes or things like that? So I think if we're going to go through the process to talk about amending it, just add that to the work for staff, so that way we can ensure that our language is clear enough, so that way it's understood what we're talking about and we don't inadvertently add 25 cents to a bunch of grocery items. So I think if we could add that somehow into this work plan as they're looking at a plastic water bottle ban and amending the single-use foodware ordinance. That would just be part of the discussion of does there need to be any clarity in language? And that's it.
Thank you for that, Vice Mayor Romack. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I mostly agree with Councilmember Pallavi. Certainly conceptually, I don't want to be adding more to staff's plate. I'm still feeling we need to be deeply focused on housing, transportation, and reduction of greenhouse gases, and we shouldn't lose sight of those goals. On the plastic water bottle ban, I guess I'm out of the loop. I feel like I heard Councilmember Klovstad talk about putting things in order to carry out this effort. And I'm kind of interpreting that as we've already made up our mind we're going to ban it. Let's figure out how to get to it, unfairly or otherwise. That's how it struck me. I could be wrong. And I'm wondering, how can we reduce plastic water bottles? And before going to a ban, what are the other ways that require less staff time? And are they doing these things, the sustainability business and sustainability special events approaches? Maybe we should be focusing on those. I feel like we're jumping to a ban too quickly and we could be consuming too much time on it. So I'm more inclined to learn more about it and put it off so we can focus on our primary issues.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. I would support adding the conversation with Park and Rec to the bike rack. I think that's a great addition and something that we can begin to talk through during the council priority setting session in 23. So I think we have support for that generally, or enough support for that. I do feel like moving forward with investigating a plastic water bottle ban is something that we can do to sort of leverage all of the work that we've just gone through for the single-use foodware reduction ordinance, and what we've learned through that process. To me, I'll say I don't feel like it's what'd you say, a cut and switch? A cut and switch? I don't feel like it's that. I feel like it's sort of a direct add-on to the ordinance that we've passed this evening. I recognize that there's definitely staff time for, research and analysis, and there's different ways these ordinances can be structured, and the staff report pointed out some, I think, really important points. But also to staff's point, there is the option to bring on a consultant to support in this work. So this isn't just a sort of, if my understanding is correct, Jen and Hillary, this isn't necessarily all of the work has to be done by staff. It would be done in conjunction with a consultant.
I think we envision the consultant role on the outreach piece if you adopted an ordinance, so not necessarily on the initial research phase.
Okay, fair enough. I would still support moving this one forward, and maybe some of our other sustainability pieces taking a bit of a back seat, because it is a very, behavior change isn't easy, but we have a direct lever to change that behavior and reduce litter in our community. And in our gratitude presentations this evening, 2 of them specifically talked about the incredible work happening in this community to reduce litter. Let's get to the point where we don't have the litter in the first place. So that is my thought on that one.
I would agree, and Vice Mayor Romack, because we were on the committee, we actually had talked about exactly what you were suggesting, that these would be processes that would go in conjunction with each other, working towards an amendment to this ordinance that both satisfy the grocers' requirements, the California Grocers Association requirements, as well as a potential plastic water bottle ordinance. So I think that that's an ideal way to progress this.
So I understand, does Mayor Henderson and Councilmember Klofstad see this as primarily a litter reduction program?
I think you're asking me to weigh in. I think it's several things. I think it's litter reduction. It's also, I mean, think about sustainability and GHG emissions and what's required to truck in all of that single-use bottled water and the manufacturing associated with all of those plastics.
So we have data on that? No.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
not on my fingertips, Council Member
I'm not trying to be
Zabriskie.
facetious. I meant it as a legitimate question.
I think it's a fair question, and when we went through the process for the single-use foodware reduction ordinance, the data brought forth was just, I mean, I think absolutely astonishing, the amounts of information that staff were able to bring forth to help inform that particular ordinance that we all unanimously adopted.
Yeah, it was 1 car per year on the greenhouse gas reductions.
But in particular, the analysis is done on the lifespan, both the
Right.
the manufacturing and
Yes, I
the
understand.
transportation and all of that, yes. So that would, I assume, would be part of that additional committee discussion.
Can I add 2 quick things? I don't know if this is a term yet, but I was going to also pull a Councilmember Zabriskie on this one. I'm gonna coin it right now because I too took a bit of shock when you said that, right? Like, I don't see the proof. I go back to Councilmember Zabriskie's comments. Our focus is housing, transit, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and I actually don't attribute. I work and live at the Safeway Shopping Center on a daily basis. I never see plastic water bottles. I see napkins flying out of dumpsters. I see garbage from unsecured garbage facilities that, because we aren't actually even sorting our garbage effectively, we have litter because the ravens are littering, not even necessarily the people. So that's why I'm saying I'm pulling a Councilmember Zabriskie, is because what I'm hearing doesn't line up with the proof, right? And I think that's why I bring that up. So I want to be really careful about why and how we talk about this, because my last comment is, and it sounds like we have 3 to move this forward, and I'm going to support that, and I understand that. I just also want us to be really conscious of the changes that we are making and some of the community conversations that I think we're about to have. And, we got through single-use foodware. I'm not convinced Reach Codes is going to be this nice walk in the park that we're going to be adopting based on all the chatter out there, right? So I just want us to be pretty deliberate in the additional regulation or incentive or whatever it is that we are pursuing, and make sure that they're not piling on top of each other, that they're following each other, right? And so I don't know what the timing is on a Reach Code when, but to me, you're going to start mixing things, and I think the public might have some concerns with that. And I just want to put that out there so that we're all really conscious of how those conversations are going to go. Because I think, to me, we don't want to go too far and lose that trust, right? We want to go far enough. I think we're doing a great job, and so it's more of a word of caution, but that's where I'm at.
Can I add
Go ahead,
one
Vice
thing?
Mayor. Yep, go ahead.
Just to Councilmember Zabriskie, you were also saying you see, plastic water bottle ban, we're headed towards a ban. I think from my perspective, I would like this work to be done to understand, is it worth it to do a ban, and would it have the effects? So I don't necessarily look at it as this is the outcome, a predetermined outcome. This is to get the data to determine if that should be the outcome.
And I would say what that outcome entails, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to actually design and implement a plastic water bottle ban. To staff's point, in emergency settings and things like that. So I think there's a lot of different components of it, which is why it's not an easy issue of just, great, ban plastic water bottles. It sounds wonderful. I think that's what we were saying when we were supporting. We weren't saying, yes, go design a ban today. It's we want to go through the process to help inform what that would look like just like we did with this most recent ordinance.
But then why wouldn't we pursue the priorities we've already identified and finish those up before if all we're talking about is researching our opportunities to potentially do something, it would seem to make more sense to wait till we have some more seasoned, experienced staff on hand and not be training an entire new sustainability department. But, to me, that's why the trade-off doesn't make sense to me right now is we've already got a work plan that we're putting in place, and maybe it's not a cut and switch, but it's certainly a deviation, from those priorities. And, we might find out by doing a special event policy that we're actually touching visitors, we're touching more people, it's lower hanging fruit, it's something we can implement quickly. To me, the benefits of sort of finishing what we've already tried to start far outweigh researching where we might go with this right now. I just like to finish things before I start new things. And that's why I thought we had this nice work plan, was we were going to bike rack it and we can talk about it later. It's my last pitch. I'm done.
Okay, no, I hear you. I was going to say, I definitely understand your perspective on this one. I respect it. I disagree with it because I think sometimes, opportunities come up, right? And if you have a work plan and priorities, you have to be flexible and adaptable to take advantage of those opportunities. To me, this is an opportunity. So I think I respectfully we're on different places on this one, and that's okay. But I want to open it up for any final comments before we sort of move forward.
One last thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. We're going to start a process to look at how we can reduce waste on events. And we would be doing the same investigation and researching other jurisdictions that have done similar ordinances and evaluate our events and what kind of an impact they could have. So it's all the same thing. We're just going to continue this on probably for forever until we eliminate waste entirely, which is going to take at least the rest of my life. And I also think, just in terms of timing, as much as I want to get an event ordinance in place, there's no way we would get one in place for this summer's events anyway. I think we have the opportunity to figure out what we want to do in both of these areas. And ultimately, it's going to be another year to year and a half on ramp for any of these ordinances anyway. So we've got quite a while to socialize it with the community and make sure everybody's comfortable with what we're doing. And I fully intend to do that.
I'm ready to move on to our mutual appreciation for our mutual respect for one another.
Let's
I appreciate that, Councilmember Zabriskie. Okay,
Campaigning's over.
You're right. Congratulations to our candidates. It is past 8 o'clock. We'll 0%. So I'm hearing, I just want to kind of recap a little bit. I'm hearing enough support to bike rack the conversation with Park and Rec. Jen, did you hear that?
I did.
Okay, good. I am hearing that Councilmember Klofstad and I are supportive of moving forward the investigation of a plastic water bottle ban. Councilmembers Zabriskie and Pallavi are more in favor of pushing it off for now. And Vice Mayor Romack, I just want to return to you because I know you said you could see kind of the benefit of moving forward. You could also go either way. So you're going to be sort of our, not to put you on the spot, but I am,
dun, dun, dun.
Whether you support moving this forward now or pushing it off until later.
I support moving this forward now, ensuring that, what I mentioned about single-use foodware, I have a trouble getting those words in the right order, is part of this, just to clarify some of those issues as well. I think the timing of it then really makes sense.
Thank you for that. I think that makes sense. Okay. So, Jen, I think we have 3 in favor of moving forward on however we want to phrase this, investigation of, yes. Or what?
So we're gonna follow the process and the timeline that we outlined in the staff report for single-use foodware. So we'll revisit that and single-use plastic conversation in March, and then we are adding to the bike rack the consolidation with the rec district and the overall bike trail safety master plan discussion. And you will all be revisiting that potentially in January, early February at the retreat, in terms of where that lays in your priorities.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for all of the work. It really is a tremendous lift, and especially considering Measure V and all of the general plan process. I mean, it's a lot, especially when we're still trying to fill positions. So thank you for that.
Good team effort, and that's why we're excited that we will have a few weeks off between council meetings for some well-earned rest from the staff and the community and the council.
Everyone has earned it for sure. Okay, so really quickly, let's move on to council reports. Council member Zabriskie, would you like to go first?
Reach Code meeting with Andrew Cross about housing and the rail yard. And Reach Code discussion with Mitch Claren and Denise, is it Coleman? Yeah, Denise Coleman. And then some events with some nonprofits. There you go.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
Yes, same on reach codes. And in addition to that, I had multiple conversations with community members on it. It's still heating up. I also attended the opening ceremony to the new Truckee Downtown Park, presented to us by Truckee Downtown Parks and Rec District and Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe. Toured the Kid Zone future property for their future, property for their future building, and their Kid Zone luncheon with many of my other council members, and happily picked up all the campaign signs 3 days early. That was very nice.
Thank you for that, all of you. Vice Mayor Romack.
Yes, did the downtown trick-or-treating. I saw Mayor Henderson there with her family. That was a fabulous event. Fabulous costume, Mayor Henderson. I got to up my family game next year. Also attended the Kids Zone Luncheon and Sierra Community House Chocolate and Wine Festival with Councilmember Zabriskie this weekend. I think that was most of it, along with lots of other conversations.
Councilmember Pallavi.
Yeah, just a bunch of individual conversations and meetings, and I too am short-staffed and have been working my regular job most of the time. So, and I apologize for being late tonight. Thank you. I was on planes and runways. Apologies.
Thank you. Okay, well, I as well had just a lot of one-on-one and community meetings, which have been just wonderful discussions. I also attended the Kids Zone community event. Great turnout for that. The downtown trick-or-treating, always really fun, and very grateful to all of our businesses who participate in that. And then actually just today, I was invited to participate in a special panel of advisors on the Institute for Local Government. It's related to their sustainable and resilient communities. So I'll have more to come on that soon. Oh, and the last thing, I had a meeting with our legislative advocates just this afternoon. Some interesting updates. Obviously, we're all waiting to see what happens after tonight, but they provided just some really good sort of Sacramento key highlights. And we did also talk very briefly about a jurisdiction, town or more regional specific AMI. So they are having conversations with HCD. There is a process to get a specific exemption that other jurisdictions have gotten. It is a lengthy process, but they're beginning to have some conversations with that agency. So I think that's it. So with that, I am going to call this meeting closed to our well, to closed session right now. So thank you. Reminder that we do not have another council meeting this month due to the Thanksgiving holidays. So we will see everyone in December. Thank you.